What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of First and Foremost Podcast. Excited to be here. Hey, we got a lot in store, man. I'm one of the co-hosts here along with Arvon Bacon of Bacon Network. Inside the hash is just a little preview of what we got Hevin Shuler in the building, man, from Clemson. Him, what's going on with the Clemson signee, find out how college life has been, et cetera, and his outlook for the offseason in the spring. And then we got a Luke Winstall a little bit later in the show, a Clemson insider, and went to the Senior Bowl. So we'll be talking about that and concluding, of course, with the three-man weave, talking about basketball, latest with that. So before we start, how you guys feeling today, man?
Blessed and highly favored, man.
Feeling good. Got some sleep in after being at the Senior Bowl, man. Losing that hour. You think it's losing that hour is not that bad? Yo, that thing is crazy. Losing that hour is crazy.
Facts.
It's different.
But so you gained the hour while you was down there, though.
Say again?
I said you gained the hour while you was down there, though.
I gained the hour, but I lost the hour coming back.
True.
So.
No doubt, man. So let's open up the show, man. First and foremost, before we bring on our first guest, I'm starting with you, Bacon. What is your first and foremost on the pod today, man? Love your shirt as well. NAACP, love to see it, man. Great shirt. What's your first and foremost, man?
First and foremost has to go to Juju Watkins, man, for 51 points, man. If you don't know by now, man, WBB, the women's basketball, is definitely trending in the right direction. I mean, you can hop on the bandwagon late. That's cool, too. You know what I'm saying? It definitely will appreciate your viewership, but they don't need it, man. They just had the viewership was going crazy. The LSU game competed against the Boston Celtics versus whoever they played. Didn't matter. They had more ratings in that game. Juju going off for 51 points. Should have been on ESPN, but hopefully the guys up top will figure that out. It'll probably be next year before we get some big games, unfortunately. But first and foremost has to be Juju Watkins for amazing performance as a freshman.
No doubt, and we're going to get into that on the hoop segment as well. That's going to be fun to break that down, talk about her season as a whole and her team, the USC Trojans. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But Jerome, going to you, man, what is your first and foremost today?
First and foremost is Black History Month, man.
Okay, Jerome.
Man, we celebrate each other, man. We celebrate each other, and I love the fact that we have so much Black representatives in the sports world right now, and media and things like that. So going to the Senior Bowl and just seeing, us represented so well down there, man, it just puts right here. It goes right here. So I love it, man. I appreciate all my guys doing their things and keep supporting each other, and let's just run us up, man. Let's run us up.
The media too?
Yes, sir.
That's what's up. Sorry, y'all.
No doubt. I was going to say my first and foremost real quick, National Signing Day is tomorrow. So that pretty much wraps up the 2024 class. That will be it, essentially. Kids will sign, and then they'll be going to their schools in May after they graduate. The early signing day period was in December. So this officially puts the bow on the 2024 class, man. So that should be a lot of fun, man. So that's what we got for us now. First and foremost, I know we're going to be joined shortly by Hevin Shuler, but that is the first and foremost. You have anything else before we bring on our guests?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
All right.
Actually, man. First, a side note to the first and foremost, man. I got to shout out Coach Daniels, man, of NEGA Recruits, Negro Recruits, man. If you don't know, man, you will know now, man. Just a quick thing, man. First year in it. Started doing it for his son, man. First year in, has 22,000 followers on him. We had him on last week's podcast. You can definitely go and tune into that on Bacon Network, Knowledge TV, or Inside the Hashes, man. Great interview, man. So that's my second first and foremost shout out. But with that being said, I'll pass it back to you, Naj.
No doubt. That is all I got. I know we are waiting around for the time, but he had a really good year at Pace Academy. A little bit about Hevin Shuler is at Clemson now. Just one of those standout players, man, on defensive line, man, and it's going to bring something different to the trenches for the Clemson Tigers, man. He's a special talent, and I think he played in one of the big-time All-Star games this past. I don't want to get it wrong. I think it was the All-American on NBC, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But he was one of the standouts. So just a fantastic player all around.
All right, let's get him on. Hevin Brown Shuler, what's going on, man?
It's good, man. It's good.
Welcome, man.
Appreciate y'all for having me on here today, man. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for having us on, getting on with us. Hey, man, first, I want to ask this question right off the bat, man, because we kind of talked about this. And I think since the last time we talked, you cut your hair, man.
Yeah, I used to have like crazy long dreads.
Yeah, man. It looks good. Don't get me wrong. It looks good. But what made you cut it?
I just got tired of it because like, during the season, it was just like after like every other game, I was having to get retwist and all that. I was just like going through that mess every time I needed a retwist. And just the maintenance of dreads. Like people think that dreads are cool, but I mean they are, but this is real high maintenance. I like the little haircut. I just wake up, put a little creamer, like in there, get right for school. And it's cool.
It is a lot of work. My hair's not as long as Chris was, but it is a lot of work to keep it up and everything, man. So I get it.
For sure.
You guys want to start your questions real quick?
Yeah, man. First, you know what I'm saying? You ain't want to rock a bob style, kind of just free form, you know what I'm saying?
No, I mean I started off with free forms. That's what I had. I had free forms. But then I just got tired of it. That's how I really was. I just got tired of it.
For sure. But I'm gonna go ahead and start it off with a bang, man. You know what I'm saying? I did my research on you as I should, man. How you from Columbia, South Carolina originally, and you commit to the dark side, man? What going on? I know it's close to home. You want to be close to mom, but you got to break that down for the Gamecocks who gonna see this later.
Right. So, oh man, that's the tough one. So I grew up about 20 minutes from the stadium from USC. So, then all my family are USC fans. And when I moved to Georgia and started getting recruited, that's when just my eyes opened up to everywhere else that was out there. Schools like Georgia. I went to Oklahoma. I went to USC in California. Obviously, I went to Clemson. So I guess just going out and just traveling, it really opens your eyes to like what else is out there, rather than just like what's your hometown. What's your hometown.
True. Your hometown, but you like what? 3 hours down the road.
I mean, so one of the reasons why I picked Clemson was distance from my mom and my grandma is perfect because it's right in the middle. It's like it's 2 hours both directions, so it's easy drive so they can both get to make the home games and make the practices and spring games. Like that. That played a big factor for sure.
Nah, for sure. I definitely know the people understand. You know what I'm saying? I know the women in your life are a major factor for you, man.
Yeah.
But before we get to another topic, man, you know what I'm saying? Obviously, you said you've been around the nation, man. What outside of Clemson? Because I know Clemson was the favorite campus that you toured, but I'm saying just kind of talk about the process of recruiting, man. Like, what was another favorite spot that you went and saw?
Definitely California, because I mean it's California, man. I mean, I got to see like all Hollywood signs, the beaches. California is like a really beautiful place, and then I didn't think I would like Oklahoma as much as I did, and I really like Northern Oklahoma. It's great like college. I'm a real like college town type of guy, so Northern Oklahoma was like great atmosphere. Yeah.
Awesome, man. We got Instagram right now open, and we got Terrence Kill in here right now. Wait, Terrence. He said this kid knows A&M is better. If you guys don't know, that's his teammate from Pace Academy. What's up, Terrence? Thanks for being on with us, man. Appreciate you.
He a trip, man. TK a trip, man. He know what it is, bro. He know if Clemson play something, then you gonna spank.
Definitely, man. So tell us about, obviously you're at Clemson. You're signed to Clemson already. You didn't go to campus yet. But tell us a little bit about Pace Academy. I don't think a lot of people know about Pace Academy since it is a private school. Tell us a little bit about Pace Academy and how they help you and prep you to get into Clemson.
I feel like the main thing with them helping me get to Clemson was we have a coach on our staff, Coach Kevin Johnson. He does a great job of getting kids like safe out there and getting everyone's film out there. Like the other day, one of my other teammates, his name is Miles Glover. He's like 6'9", offensive tackle, like 325. He just got his first contact off from Duke. So he does a great job of like getting our film out there and just he just does a great job of recruiting us altogether.
Definitely. I've got another comment here. This is actually from Ms. Meek Brown, which is Hevin's mom. He said that we really like Michigan too. Don't tell me that. That hurts my heart, man. I've been trying to recruit this kid from Michigan forever, so since I've known him. Like, hey, Michigan. But
see, here's what happened. When we went up to Michigan, like when we first got there, it was cool. And then the second day, man, I walked outside and there's about like 3 inches of snow on the ground. I'm like, because when you're from the South, you're not used to just seeing 3 inches of snow on the ground. Yeah, we out in the town and we sitting there like we're layered up, and I'm like,
This ain't it.
It get a little cold.
I feel that. Hey, Naj, you got any other questions?
Yeah, man. I got to talk to you. I don't know if you remember me, Hevin, but I did see you at Georgia High School Media Day when you were with Sammy, man. So that was a lot of fun talking to you. So just kind of talk about that dynamic, both you guys going to kind of Clemson and how fun it's been, just kind of having that relationship. I know y'all played when y'all were younger. Just talk a little bit about that.
So me and Sammy played for FBU together when we were in like 7th grade, and then I had to play for I played for another FBU team, and we actually beat them to go to Florida that year. So I was obviously I still rub that in his face to this day. But I think when I had committed first, and then my biggest pitch thing was that we played together in middle school. Why not just ride it out in college? I mean, that's like one of my best friends. Like I swear, like, he's a great dude. Obviously, he's a great player. I mean, he's the number 1 linebacker in our class. So obviously, and he's so versatile. Like when you look at him, he can run the ball, make the big hit, make the big tackle, and he's a team player for sure. And I think with Barrett, Carter, Stan, and them two and playing behind me, I think that's gonna be a monster. They're 2 monster linebackers in college football.
No doubt, man. I mean, having them back and then Sammy coming right in, probably a plug and play guy. I mean, that's gonna be off the chain, man.
For sure.
Talk about a little bit, if you don't mind sharing, just what was the relationship like you was able to build with the defensive line coach or just the defensive coordinator there, at Clemson, and how your recruiting kind of just started with them. Talk a little bit about that.
So at Clemson, as you guys know, Todd Bates was originally the D-line coach who was recruiting me. He's at Oklahoma now. So that's why it was really like a race between Oklahoma and Clemson for me, because I love Todd Bates a lot. Like, that's my guy. But then I didn't realize that Coach Eason, he was at Auburn before he went to Clemson. He had planned to offer me while he was at Auburn. And then he offered me while he was at Auburn. And then he came to my school and was like, I'm the new D-line coach at Clemson. You'll be hearing from us, real soon. Like, and I swear, like that spring game, I got there and Coach Sweeney had said I got offered, and I was like, oh snap! And then he had just said he was watching my film since he was at Auburn, and we've been like this, and we've been thick as thieves ever since. That's my guy. I love sure. And then you got Wes Goodwin, who's been there for a while. He played a major part in my recruitment because he broke down our defense, and what they do at Clemson is similar to what we do at Pace. So I feel like I'll fit the system really well.
No doubt. And then if you can, Hevin, just for those that don't know, just whenever you feel equipped or feel like sharing, just talk a little bit about just, obviously who you are, man. Just what's the Hevin Brown Shuler story? For those that don't know, you want to get to know you a little bit just here on the podcast. Just, who is Brown Shuler, if you had to say?
Hevin Brown Shuler, son of Meek Brown, single mother household. Started playing football around the age of 4. I started with flag. And then when I moved to Georgia, that's when I first started playing tackle. And at first, I didn't really want to hit nobody. So the coaches were getting mad at me saying, "Oh, man, you too big not to be hitting people, and I think I hit this kid one good time, and then everything had clicked from there. And then I moved back to South Carolina. I played because in private school you can bump up like when you're in sixth grade, you can play on the JV team. So I played JV when I was like in sixth grade because I was just so big, and I was getting whooped on by like all the other older kids because they had been in the weight room. I was a little scrawny little kid. And then when I got back to Georgia, I got in the field program over at Lassiter. I think that's when everything really took off because I made my first huddle account, and then that's when I saw even like college coaches were viewing me in middle school, and me and my mom was sitting back and like, whoa, like, and it's actually ironic because Clemson was one of the first schools that looked at me. Clemson and Trevor Lawrence, I saw my highlight tape, which I thought was wild. So I was deep, and then
that's crazy.
I've been just getting recruited ever since. So.
Wow. And before I throw it to y'all, I got one more. I'm gonna throw it back to Bacon or Jerome. Just what's your fondest memory? You talked about going back and playing since you were 4. So I gotta ask, it don't gotta be varsity, right?
Yeah.
It don't gotta be high school, but what is your fondest memory you'll always cherish playing the sport of football?
I think I was in 8th grade, and I had made like the winning tackle to save the game. It was like a goal line stand, and I was seeing what they were doing because they were running the ball to like the left side the whole game because I was lined up on that side, so they ran like opposite side of me. So then I told coach, I was like, "Hey coach, I think I know what they're about to do right here," because the running back that they had at North Cobb was we played North Cobb. David, he's a mom man. He's obviously Clemson running back. He just signed with me. He's there early. I had like switched over to the other side of the A gap last second. Cut through the beat the center and tackle the running back. It was a crazy moment for sure. That's probably my best moment ever because the team was hyped around me. The coaches were jumping up in the air because it was a real close game. So I gotta say that's probably my favorite moment for sure.
That's so dope. That's dope. I'll throw it to y'all, man. Thank you for sharing that, man.
Yes, sir.
+5 pay Rick.
Yeah.
So, real quick, Hevin, because Mama Deuce want me to ask some questions for you. So, question, obviously, Ashley, I was gonna ask this anyway, but you were just recently at the All-American game. I believe it was in Texas, down there. How was that for you? How was that experience, being around the best of the best in America and be able to compete with that and playing at a high level yourself?
I really enjoyed the experience because I feel like in high school, that's like the pinnacle game that you look for. That's where the Trevor Lawrences play. That's where the Chase Youngs play. That's where the Tuas play. So when you look at that game and then you look at college, that will be like that's the closest thing to a college football practice that you can ever get to. That whole week is like basically a bowl practice. So when we got there the first day, we signed in, we got all our gear, got our hotel room key, we met our roommates, and then that second day, we was up at like 7 o'clock in the morning on the practice, and we had the head coach, we had the Buford head coach at Buford, and he told us straight up in the locker room, "Yeah, I'm not gonna take it easy on y'all this week." We were in full gear the entire week. I kid you not, we were hitting each other, going after it the entire week because I had been off. I was just training, so that day I finally took the tag. I was like, and they had like the little training rooms there. I was sitting up in there getting like normal tests on my legs and shoulders. So I was so sore, but it was definitely a great experience to be around some of the other best players in the country for sure.
Definitely. Did you get any downtime while you was over there? Any sightseeing or anything like that, or it was just all business?
No, so definitely after practices they give you like so we had like we had like a 12 a.m. curfew. So we were able to go to like the players' lounge. We were running like batting matches up in there, and then they let us go to the city. We went to like the Alamo in San Antonio. We were walking around the city. It was definitely.
That's awesome, man. Now, tell me, maybe some players that maybe wasn't from Georgia or you didn't have any contact with, but when you was down there, you got to talk to them and maybe had some cool relationships with.
Cooper Cousins, he just signed to Penn State. He's like a 6'6", 320-pound center, and I was like, Jesus, that's a huge center to be playing on the inside like that. And then Kevin Hayward, I don't know if y'all saw his video that went like viral on Twitter where he like slung the dude like 20 like 5 yards in the other direction. Yeah, that him, and then some guys on the D line. It's like Amarius Williams. He's up at Auburn right now, and James Peoples. He's like a running back at he just signed to Ohio State. Him and Edric. We all of those group of guys that we all kind of got pretty close while we were there. That was the guys I was around a lot for sure while I was there.
Definitely. What do you feel is your biggest takeaways from playing in a game like that with, the high level coaching and high level, players and things like that?
Definitely what I took away from that game was the next level isn't high school. Like, you're not going to be the biggest dude on campus. Like, you're not going to always be the most dominant guy on campus. There, obviously, you're going to lose a rep and you're going to win reps. So I think that mindset of just, coming in, staying humble, and just knowing that, like, there are other guys out there that are just as good as you, just as talented as you out there. And don't think that, college is going to be just like a walk in the park. So that was definitely a big takeaway.
Definitely. All right, I'm going to kick it out to Bacon, and then I got a couple more questions after that. Okay.
For sure, man. After a big game Sunday night or Friday night, grandma cooking at her house, mama cooking at her house. Where you going, man?
That's a tough one right there. Because both of mom and my grandma can cook. Let's see.
Say the right thing. Mom's in here. Say the right thing. Mom's in here. She's looking.
I know. All right, so for mom, my Luke's, she makes the best oxtails I've ever tasted.
Oh, man. I love
oxtails, rice, cabbage, and some cornbread to go with that, for sure.
That's 5-star.
Yeah, that's luxury right there. That's luxury right there. And then my grandma can make anything, to be honest. She be making like homemade pizza. So I think that's that shit right there. Because you can see her tossing up the dough, putting it in. Yeah, she go crazy. My grandma goes crazy.
Okay. Yeah.
Great answer, man. He played the middle. I like that. We gonna say
I played. I wasn't gonna pick one there.
Yeah.
He's media trained already.
Yeah. But this kind of as much as you want to say, man, obviously I'm saying those two women are special people in your life, man. Just kind of talk about I'm saying what they meant to you, man. Obviously, growing up in a single home environment, and what have they kind of poured into you, kind of nurtured you to the man you are today?
For sure. I definitely. So I know that there's like a stereotype that like a single woman household can't raise a man, but I'm living proof that that's not the case at all, because I turned out great. My mom been playing both parts of my life, being the disciplinarian, being the like fun, loving, nurturing parent that she is, and definitely big ups to my mom, because without her, I wouldn't have anything that I have today, for sure. And without my grandma being like my number one supporter, coming to everything when she can, and just that grandma love, like it's nothing like just like having her around in my life, for sure. Definitely, for sure.
For sure, man. I know what we get as young boys, we graduate to young man around 13, 15, we start smelling our must, we want to stick our chests out.
Right.
Do we want to do it? Did mama jack you up, bro?
Oh yeah, nah. Yeah, you don't even gotta get into that. You don't even gotta get into that. Nah, there are definitely some times when mama had to sit me down sometimes, because I thought, because we, like you said, that puberty started hitting you, like, man, like, I got the show, you know what I'm saying? And nah, that didn't last too long. That did not last too long.
Shout out to my dudes for firm hand, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
let's see, man. I hope I'm not stealing your questions wrong, but I wanted to bring up the Seventh Hevin supporters, for the foundation you have, man, just for the supports on single parents and kids, man. Just kind of talk a little bit about how that came about, and kind of what's the long-term goal for you.
Well, the idea came about, big ups to my mom, because she was the one who was like, I had the idea, but she was the one who was like, okay, if you're really serious about this, I can, like, because it's not about like what she knows about who you know. my mom has great network. She knows a lot of people, so she was able to, get it done real fast. And all of a sudden, I was at a Kroger the other day, and it was like this dude who played football. He kept like looking at me, and I was like, it was like this middle schooler, and I was like, hey mom, like keep on staring at me, I don't know what I did or something like that. And then she told him to come over, and he was like, oh no man, I'm just a big football fan. I assumed that you play football. I was like, oh okay. So then what happened was I mentored him now. He ended up being from a single parent home, just like I was. And all that anger played up when you got the underlying issues, stuff like that. So me just being a mentor leader for him, it's almost like a big brother thing. Because I had a lot of big brothers growing up. Definitely had a lot of strong male role models in my life that definitely helped me stay on the right path, and I was able to go talk to them about certain things. And I feel like the goal is just to keep making it bigger and bigger. Keep making it to where I can reach out and mentor more young kids who come from the same situation as me, and let them know that they're not alone out there. Because you want to deal with everything. You think you're like your own man. You got to deal with everything by yourself. That's just not the case, because there are other people that are exactly the same situation. So I feel like that's my long-term goal with it. And then to do like football camp. I think I'm starting this camp up in May. I'm trying to get my first ever football camp going up in May. So that's definitely that is definitely what I'm looking forward to in the future.
Wow. Nah, for sure, man. A lot of times, man, we definitely hold our stuff in. We don't want to say nothing to nobody. We feel like people, sometimes people do kind of take things and kind of use it against you as in life. But shout out to you, brother. I'm saying I'll pass you, Juju.
Appreciate it.
No, you're good. I'm gonna let Naj finish up if he wants real quick.
Nah, I didn't have much else, man. Just keep doing your thing. Hopefully Jerome, man, you just let him know to plug his stuff, man, so people can get at him, man, and support his foundation. Before we let him go, just like allow him to plug his X and his Instagram, man, so that everybody can support what he's doing in his foundation, and just a good role model that he's being, man, not only to kids, but just everybody out there. That's my last point.
Definitely. All right. Well, a couple of things I wanted to ask. Obviously, I knew you for a couple of years now, and I've seen your growth, like not only physically but mentally as well. You've been a really strong-hearted kid, and very humble, and obviously you get that from your mom, and your mom being a big force in that. But tell us how you became the man you are now, from early days to now, and some of the things that you kind of went through to become, Hevin Brown Shuler, the commit to
Clemson. Right. I think at first, so I always believed in my head that eventually I would be, a top player in the country. I definitely believed that I would go to college for free, but I didn't know how early it would come and how early it did come. It was like after my 5th game of my freshman year. So that was just a lot to take in, because it was like my birthday weekend. So, it was definitely a crazy situation, because Tennessee had offered me first, and my phone, like, simultaneously, like, my mom's phone was ringing, and was like, no, get off the phone with Tennessee. Georgia want to offer you first. And I was like, I'm sitting there like, there's no way like this is happening right now. And then for that week, I had like 2 offers coming in a day. So it was mind blowing. But I think me coming from a freshman, learning how to just deal with, I guess, all the eyes that were on me, just like the pressures, not pressures, but just like the expectations that comes with it. I remember one of my teammates, Chandler Bing, he's playing at Howard now. He had told me after practice, he was like, man, I hope you know that when we're gone, like this is gonna be your team. Like you got to start carrying yourself like you're a D1 prospect, and you can't be, doing all the things that every other freshman is doing, because you're not like every other freshman. And that kind of like really sunk in. I think that's when I started carrying myself in a more like, like I know what I got to do type manner, and more of a, there's more just, I just had to grow up, because with that type of stuff, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. You definitely get big in the head. You can feel like you don't have to, work just because you got a spot. You can potentially have a spot to go into a different college. And once I realized how like coaching can change at any minute, and some coaches don't have to honor your scholarship. It was definitely an eye opener just to make sure I stayed on top of my game, and just know that there's somebody right behind me that's want to take my spot next year. Like there's already been 2 defensive lineman commits that from Clemson that are probably looking at me and be like, let me do everything better than that guy so I can play. Because at the end of the day, we all want to get to the NFL. At the end of the day, we all want to do that thing where we buying our moms a house, buying our car, trying to spoil her as much as we spoil us. So it's definitely just maturing over time for sure.
Definitely. Speaking of spoiling, man, your mom just got you a new car, got you a new whip right now. Tell us about your new whip, man. How you been liking it so far?
Okay.
So I'm a huge truck guy, and it was crazy because it was my birthday, and I walked out. My mom was like trying to be like a Soul Train line, and I was like, Mom, nobody trying to do that. And then all of a sudden, I feel like a Soul Train line, you're supposed to line up as you go. All of a sudden, I don't see nobody in the Soul Train line, and I just see everybody standing outside. I was like, what's going on? So I walk outside, and it was my truck. I was like, oh my God. I was like, my jaw was to the floor. Because it was the truck that me and my mom had test drove. It was like everything I could have wanted because I'm a huge truck guy, and I got a 2019 Ford F-150 XLT, and I was so happy. I was the happiest man alive.
Congrats, man. I know just being around you for a couple of times, you've been talking about getting a truck and getting your own car. So I was excited to see that you got it, man. Obviously, I was like, oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like, this is definitely like trucks are like, I'm a country boy, so I like the 4-wheelers, the fishing, the deep sea fishing. I like all that type of stuff. So the truck was like the last piece of the puzzle. So now I got it. Definitely, man. Hey, it pays off for hard work. You've been working very hard, so I know your mom wanted to give you stuff that as a gift. But talking about hard work, because I know on and off the field, you've been doing a lot of hard work. You, I think you had a 4.0, if I'm not mistaken.
Tough.
So I'm like, no, I like 3.5.
Still really good.
Round up.
Yeah, your mom got you.
We can round up.
There you go. Tell us a little about your mom, because obviously you got your hard work from your mom, and your mom does a ton of things. What are some of the things that your mom do, and how she instilled some of this hard work into you?
I think for sure, just like the way, her story from college, how she was really getting her master's degree, going on her PhD.
Wow.
I was 2 years old. So just from seeing that to her opening up a nail salon, to her having started, she did healthcare, had her own healthcare business for a little bit. So I guess her as just a businesswoman, and just the way that she networks, and she was doing hosting for Tyler Perry's events and stuff like that.
Wow.
She still does that now. She graduated with a 3.95 with me, and so it just makes me think I have no excuses. I gotta do it. There's just no excuse for me, because all I'm doing is football at the end of the day. And that sounds like a lot, but taking care of a kid, that's way more than. So I don't really have an excuse not to go do what I'm supposed to do in college.
All right. Well, I want to ask you one last fun question for see if you guys want to ask a last question. But I'm a big foodie, and I like to talk about food. So let's have some comparisons. All right. Well, first I want to know, and I think I asked you this before, but I'm gonna ask you again. Pineapples on pizza, yes or no?
Definitely not.
All right, good.
What?
Pineapples on pizza. Listen, y'all gotta go somewhere in New York. I gotta teach you. I gotta take all y'all.
Horrible. If you put pineapples on your pizza, that's insane.
Say it again.
Come on, man. Have you tried it?
I never will. Why are you putting something sweet on with salty pepperoni and marinara sauce? That's nasty.
Hey, Hevin, tell him that's not it, bro.
Yeah, that's not it. That's not it.
That's not it, bro.
That's not it.
It's trim, twins, trim.
Hamburger or hot dog?
Yeah, it's trim. Yeah.
Hamburger or hot dog?
Hamburger for sure.
Okay. Ice cream or cake?
Ice cream.
Okay. Ice cream or water ice?
Wait. Oh, like a snow cone or something like that?
Yeah.
Ice cream for sure.
Okay. Ice cream or brownies?
Hey, dog, we going double over the triple over the ice cream, ain't you?
That's what I'm saying.
Literally,
ice cream. Cause you can't eat brownies without ice cream.
Okay. Ice cream or your mom's best dessert, whichever that is.
My mom's best dessert.
What would that be? What would that be?
She made like these good homemade cookies.
Okay.
Good homemade cookies for sure.
Okay, no pies, nothing like that?
Huh?
She'll make any pies, just cookies?
Like cookies and brownies and stuff like that. I think just cookies and brownies.
Okay. Yeah. And what would be your favorite dish that your mom makes for Thanksgiving? Like that, you have to have it every year.
I already said oxtails. So I have to have like, it's not even just like every year. It's my pregame meal. At every Thursday before a game, I have to have her spaghetti. They gotta have like spaghetti with garlic bread and some spinach. Gotta have it.
Yeah, that's a staple right there. That's a staple. I love that.
That's that.
All right, cool. All right, I'm gonna ask some team questions because I know last year at Pace Academy, and I know some of your teammates are watching. So tell me, who is the goofiest on your team?
Probably Terrence Q. For sure. Terrence Q.
Okay.
Yeah. Either Terrence Q or Jordan Burns, the other dude who you interviewed that one time.
Jordan Burns, yeah, linebacker.
Yeah.
That's my guy. All right. Who is the hothead on the team?
Me.
That's you? What?
Well, it's not like it's more like if somebody starts talking trash to me, then that's when I start turning it up a little bit. It's like, because people don't know that little side where I can turn it up. So if you start talking to me, because there'll be times like if you do a little extra after the whistle, I'm like, all right, bro, you got one more time. You got one more time now. We can really take it there. And if they do it again, it's on. It's on the podcast.
I'll be the first to admit that when you're on the field, you're locked in and you're a different person. I'm telling you.
Yeah, for sure.
I see Hevin off the field. I'm like, oh yeah, what's up, Hevin? I say stuff to Hevin when he's getting warmed up. It's like, that's it. That's all I'm getting.
It's not a lot of talking. It's not a lot of talking going on.
Facts.
All right, definitely. And the last question: who has the weirdest pregame ritual on the team?
Probably my boy Maddox Crawford. He just committed to Swanee. He probably got the weirdest. He goes in the restroom and he has to wet his hair and get it slicked back before.
Slick back.
What are you doing? He's like, oh bro, just chill. I do this for every day. I'm like, all right, bro. You got it, bro. You got it for sure.
Whatever gets you going.
Whatever floats your boat, bro. As long as you gonna go out there and make it play.
Facts. Shout out.
Yeah.
Shout out to him. All right, guys. You got any last questions for Hevin before we get off?
Yeah, my last thing, I'd be remiss not to ask you about Coach Smith. You know what I'm saying? Just kind of talk about your relationship. How is it influential to you? And got to bring him up because he got the Olympics. Well, he just got some big coaching accolade for something, but it's a little tidbit about Coach.
You talking about ROL coach?
The basketball coach? Hey, basketball coach.
Oh yeah. Coach Sherman White.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I said Smith, my bad.
Man. When I say I don't know if there's a coach that works harder than him for sure, or cares more about their players for sure. He's definitely you can tell he's a role model. They do our basketball team does everything the right way. Our coach, he's so everything has to be on point. If one player wears a sleeve, the whole team better be wearing the suit or they ain't winning. So he's just like he does like all the little things right away and to all the small details. And I think that's what separates them from those basketball teams. And him getting 500 wins and I think this is his second time being the head coach for the McDonald's All-American.
That's what it is.
McDonald's All-American game. So that's definitely huge. So kudos to him for sure. And he tried to get me to play basketball a couple times, but I wasn't going for it.
For sure, man. Then the last thing for me, I just, I'm saying, just from hearing your story, I felt inclined, I'm saying, definitely 3, if not all 4 of us, I'm saying, just give a hand clap to my Deuce, man, for doing everything she done, man. The 4.0, you know what I'm saying, getting things done, getting both of the degrees with the young man she raised to a superhero, you know what I'm saying, worth of a child, man. So shout out to you, Mom, for doing your thing and being a light to the world for not just Black people, African American, just for everybody, man. So shout out to her.
Appreciate it. Yeah, but shout out to my Deuce, man.
Most definitely.
Shout out to my Deuce.
All right, Naj, you got anything?
Nah, man. I just say go ahead and just plug your stuff, man, where people can find you, bro.
So my Instagram is Hevin Shuler is my name, and then my Twitter is, you can just search out my name too, just Hevin Shuler, or you can find me on Twitter at Heavy Duty BS.
Definitely, man. Hey, brother, appreciate you getting on with us. Obviously, you got your foundation right down here, so everybody can see it, 7th Heaven. So make sure you check out his foundation. Check out him out on his website. He's going to be doing some great things in Clemson when he gets there. And we're going to definitely be looking at you, rooting you on for sure. And hopefully we get you on it again, man.
For sure. I definitely appreciate y'all for having me, man. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the show. Appreciate it.
Most definitely, brother.
Well, that's Hevin. Thank you guys for checking him out. Thank you for getting on, and we'll see you on the next one, man. See you, bro.
All right, appreciate it.
All right.
Well, there he goes, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that entertaining interview. That was Hevin Shuler. It was a lot of fun catching up with him, talking with him. As you could tell, man, very humble kid. Got to catch up with him at Georgia Media Day, and you've seen it in the interview, man. Dude does things the right way, and as you guys said, mom raised a really good one in a single-parent household, and you could just tell her beam, her spirit is all over him, and just everything that she's about is all over that kid. So shout out to him. Hopefully, as Jerome mentioned, we'll have him in contact. We're going to try to not just make this a high school show, but also athletes we talk to that go on to the bigger stage and play in college. Hopefully get them to come back on the show and talk about their college experience. We want to make this a platform that people can not only come from high school, but also college and tell their story and just talk a little bit about themselves and what's been going on and kind of give us a little bit of insight and insider into what they're doing on the next level.
Facts. I got to go harder, bro. She got 2 degrees with a child. I got to go harder, man.
No cap. Well, I think that brings us to our next guest, guys. So we're going to talk about some more things with a fellow Clemson insider, Luke Winston. Jerome got to see him at the Senior Bowl, man. He does everything the right way, man. He's one of the pioneers, I think, in the industry. He's one of the young bucks when you think of the young whippersnappers, man, in the industry, that's doing a thing and is setting the foundation. I think, and is trailblazing in a way and really giving great advice and helping others get put on. That is Luke Winston, man. He's helped me out a lot growing in the industry. I wouldn't be where I am today without him, to be honest with y'all. So without further ado, man, let's bring him on.
Hey, how are y'all doing? Glad to be the latest whippersnapper.
Not wet behind the ears, though. Let's not get that misconstrued.
Come on, brother.
Oh, man. We appreciate you coming on, man. We know you're a busy guy, man. What's going on?
Oh, no problem. I appreciate the opportunity, guys. All good right now. Just kind of working through Senior Bowl content, trying to figure out what to put out when, what to do with it. I know, Jerome, we talked about some of that earlier today. Working on that, working on recruiting. Clemson, of course, has some big visit days coming up, and then just keeping everything organized and keeping it in check.
No doubt about it. So, obviously, I'll let I'm gonna let Jerome start, man. You guys were at a special event, so just tell us a little bit about that. And Jerome, I'm gonna let you take over, man, and start first with Luke.
Yeah, man, because this is the event that me and Luke actually met. Actually, we met at the Senior Bowl. I was at the Senior Bowl last when y'all seen me on the last podcast, and we were both there. We both met there, and ever since then, Luke's been a huge help to me. First, it was just funny how we both met each other. We was both living in the same area, and when I met him, that was his first year at the Senior Bowl. I think it was my fifth. No, I'm sorry, like fourth year being there. So we was kind of helping each other out. Like he was showing me things as far as journalism. I was showing him the ropes at the Senior Bowl, so it was kind of cool. And then we realized we was both living in the same, Atlanta metro area. And ever since I know you guys talk about this all the time. I'm new to Georgia. April will be my third year, so I'm not even like fully invested. But like Luke was the guy that really, show me and put me on. Like, hey, this is the school you need to look at. This is the kid you need to look at. This is how this works. This is how this works. So Luke's been a big pioneer in that. So I appreciate Luke very, very much with all of the knowledge that he won. But Luke, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you start in this industry? I know the story, but I want you to tell the viewers the story because it's a very fascinating story.
Yeah, first off, thank you for the kind words. And then, it's always been fun, especially getting to travel the way that we do, going like, I think about the IMG game and late night Waffle House behind the stadium and everything. Like, it seems like it's been longer that we've known each other than it is, 3 years. It feels like it's been maybe 10, but I feel like we've both grown a lot and it's always been fun to watch you. So the thing to me, like getting into it, I was one that in middle school, I was a big like stats kid. I was like, I'm going to be the GM. I got to be a GM. Like that was my thought. I always had some kind of ambition. And then I get to high school and thankfully I went to a school, St. Pius Catholic High School in Atlanta that had a lot of extracurriculars. And they were like, well, you can't really be like a GM of a team or anything, but we can offer you some opportunities that are kind of up that alley. And the first one for me, I was like 14 years old. I was doing sideline reporting for the football games. So we had a web broadcast on the NFHS network, and they would toss it down to me, and I would try to ask 2 competent questions to somebody and kind of throw it back. And I was managing social media and got my start that way. Thankfully, had a lot of really kind people, a lot of good mentors around that helped me find my way and figure things out. And it started to stoke the passion for it, which is why I'm such a big advocate for high school programs and opportunities for kids to explore these types of passions at the high school level, because at minimum, you're developing communication skills and networking and learning how to deal with people and all these things that help you grow later. So I really attribute that to the high school I was at, a lot of the, athletic director Mark Kelly, those kinds of people that really were behind programs. So then we get to the point where senior year, I'm working on, in a way, kind of my commitment of where am I going to college and, not being recruited or anything, but just looking at what are the options and trying to look at pros and cons lists and, things similar to what maybe, a player would do in a way. And just saying, where's the opportunity, trying to make it, going on these, college visits and figuring out like, where can I get experience? Where can I kind of look for early playing time, to put it in terms that we talk about? And Georgia College and State University in Milledgeville, Division II school. Allen Weston was the SID. They wanted to, school didn't have football, but they had basketball, and the basketball program was a decent Division II one, and they had a shot for me to work at that program immediately. So I was calling games and getting to work with soccer and volleyball and baseball. So that was where I started to get reps. And then once I got reps, I said, okay, I love this. I love what I'm doing. I was doing ESPN Plus work at Mercer and still am, and getting to call games there, but I really wanted to be in football. So I transferred over to the University of Georgia, and shortly before the transfer, started working with a site up in Clemson. So covering Clemson, being a Georgia kid, it's kind of a weird thing, but it's really a geographical advantage for our site. I try to be open with it, Jerome. It's something that, you can't try to hide it. It's public information. So I just tell people, I like everybody. It's like having an NFC and an AFC team. I like those schools, and not everyone thinks that I should be able to do that and have that opinion, but I do. And I feel like, it also keeps the coverage unbiased because I did not grow up a Clemson fan. So I can call balls and strikes a little better than I like to think some of the other people in the market. Of some people don't want to admit when something's going wrong, but I'm more willing to dive into it. So that's kind of how I get to Clemson. I started working with them and then transferred to Georgia. And then I said, okay, I asked my boss, I'm like, you're going to be mad at me about this, and said it's fine. So here we are today covering the Senior Bowl, covering the NFL draft circuit, covering Clemson, getting to, get into recruiting as much as I can and try to go through all the different aspects of football.
Awesome, man. Now, obviously, you going to the Senior Bowl. I think every year you went to Senior Bowl. You had brung a guy that's so much cooler than you, your father. Cool dude. You can see why, Luke is so charismatic that he is through his father. But tell us a little about your father and his involvement in your life and helping you get to where you are.
Oh, man, I got to show you. The Senior Bowl is always fun. I call him my executive producer because, we were looking for, what should we call it? I'm looking for a picture of him here. He's very proud of this. He sent it to most everybody he knows. I took a picture of him interviewing some players this week. He's pretty pumped up about it. So I was getting him, we got a second camera set up because it used to be him behind the camera. And now I was like, all right, this is your time right now. We're not doing the cell phone stuff. We're going to do it professionally. We're going to do it the best way we know how. So we got Dad a camera set, got him a microphone. We got, the little branding on it so people don't rip the content off, and got a second one made, and Dad was doing the interviews and he just loved it. And it was the kind of thing too, where he's good at this kind of thing, being social, like you say, talking people up, getting good stuff out of people. So we were doing kind of like interview training and practice. And I would say all kinds of crazy things just to make sure he was ready for anything somebody says. And we made it a family endeavor, and the content for us is, better than it's ever been. And it helped out in a huge way to be able to have a second gun in the fight, in a way, to have, how it is with Senior Bowl, sometimes 150, 200 people competing for interviews. I knew that to do what I wanted to do, I was going to need more than just me with a camera. So it's always been that kind of relationship. Dad's always supported. We've built up his resume a good bit between covering high school and the Senior Bowl and some of these things. He's always been interested in media. He used to announce high school games, but then once I started getting into it, he would be my cameraman, or he would do, interview people or whatever we needed him to do. So we've turned it into a family event. I've kind of helped coach him up a little bit with anything that he needs, and it's been really fun for us.
I'm trying to figure out why, he hyped me up more than you, man. Like, I didn't know you longer than your dad. He hyped me up every time I see him. He's like, "Yeah, what's up, Jerome?" Like,
yep.
I'm gonna have to steal him from you, man. I'm gonna have to hire him and leave you in the dust with him. He's cool, man. So tell us, and I know you've been working with different industries now. Tell us a little bit about how, working for a lot of big industries kind of helped you out in your journey, and some of the tidbits you got from each one.
Yeah, the thing for me is trying to keep my feet in as many buckets as you can, in a way. So anytime I see an opportunity and anytime I see a door, I just kind of let people know. I've learned this actually from recruiting and talking to recruits about how they deal with people. I'll see an opportunity and I'll let people know exactly where I stand. I'll say, hey, this is what I do right now. I'm really interested in what you do. I don't know if that's what I want to do, but could we do this, or could I apply for this, or could I do an internship, or could I, do some kind of paid, unpaid, whatever it needs to be for me to explore stuff. And that's where, like, I think some things later this year will play out of. I'm exploring a lot of different things. I'm exploring a little more of maybe some of your specialties, Jerome, behind the camera kind of stuff, getting into producing, of figuring out what makes a good show, what makes good edits. That's things that, whether I do that for a career or not, are just so valuable to know and something to have in your toolbox. So for me, it's where even multiple sports, you think about the way that I came up in high school, for example, I was a broadcaster and a broadcaster only for the first few years of high school when I got into it. So I was told, like, hey, you're doing football, but unless you want 9 months a year off, you should pick something else up. And we were a pretty good basketball school, so I picked up basketball. Then people are, do you really want to take the whole spring off? Like, how do you feel? Okay, I'll do some baseball. And I did full season soccer, and getting to, Mercer, ESPN Plus stuff. For me, they were like, football is probably not going to happen. They've got some really legendary guys in Central Georgia that call their games. So they said, everything but football can be fair game if you work up to it. So I had one year I did like maybe 8 sports, beach volleyball, women's lacrosse, all kinds of different stuff, basketball in the middle, baseball, trying to work on it. So I think that the versatility is something we hear athletes talk about. So I think as media members, that's something that we should be doing as well, and just making sure that, things like I see you, Jerome, I see Najee as well, Bacon, you guys that are able to post on social media, right? You can go about making videos, you can interview people, like doing all these different things. I think it's the key in today's age. There's so many one-trick ponies, I think, in the older generation that are having to learn late. So I think for us, like, let's learn it early. Let's get on TikTok. Let's go live. Like all these kinds of things. Let's do podcasts. Like this is the stuff to me that I think is going to make us successful in the future. So that's the most important part.
Appreciate it. I appreciate the kind words. I got one last question. I'm gonna let my guys talk real quick. My question was basically, dang, I lost my question now. I'm gonna let them go, and I'll come back to it. I'll let them go. Go ahead, Bacon.
Got you, man. What's going on, my friend? Just kind of expound more about just kind of teaching your pops. I'm not teaching because so obviously he's had experience, but I'm saying just elaborate a little bit more because I tried to have my pops so that we went to college party and things didn't go the best, so I kind of stepped back. But so hearing your story, I need to get my pops out there a little more, but just elaborate on more of this the teaching process.
Yeah, I think you should definitely get him out there. It's one of those that the thing is, to me, it's always traits of things. Like, for example, I think Najee, when I first saw you, for example, I was immediately seeing traits. Like these are things that like maybe I didn't have, or things that I see people that are successful that had. And in the back of my mind, I was like, I think Najee's going to, really be successful. Cause that was one where I think I'd been doing it for a year. So I hadn't really seen you. And then I started seeing you and I was like, I see it. So kind of similar with my dad of like, in a very different way. But I saw traits and I was like, okay, he's really good at talking to people. There were a lot of interviews at the Senior Bowl where he got better things out of players than I did, just because of who he is and how he is. It's his demeanor. And it's one of those things that it makes it special. He's a football fan. I'm a football fan. He taught me football. Like I grew up in the morning where I had a bedtime, so I didn't get to watch like the Super Bowl with the David Tyree catch and Eli Manning and all that stuff. I was kind of grew up a little bit of a Giants fan. So I didn't get to watch it. I had to go to bed at halftime. So dad would come in like after all these big games in the morning, he'd be, wake up, here we go, time for school. And he'd give me the recap. So I learned my love of football from dad in those kinds of ways and the communication. And now we get to the point where I can share it with him because having the media company is a benefit because I can go and ask for a credential for myself, but then also for another worker, and it's fair play, and it's someone that's working and someone that won't bother people. So it was the type of thing where he comes in and I'm like, okay, you can talk to people. The biggest thing was making sure we have like the mental checklist of when we have the camera on, we need to make sure before you start the interview, we've got audio levels and we've got the red light on. And then that's the key. Because he'll just want to just talk. He's ready to just chop it up with you. So I was like, first things first here, audio levels, red light, then you chop it up. And then once we got that down, didn't take very long. But for him, he's just such a natural talker. It's like here we go. Remember the media, the part here. And then the thing is, it creates so many special moments for us for example, Puka Nacua last year, he was walking through the tunnel and I grabbed someone else because I was like, okay, Puka's good, but I'm going to go grab this other guy. And dad was like, okay, I'll get Puka. And we had a Puka interview and an exclusive with him because of my dad being like, hey, he made a couple of catches today. I think he might be good. So those were the things to me that like, man, thank you for coming. Like, thank you. He really enjoys it too. So that's the fun part.
Nah, for sure, man. But just give a story. Me and my pops, who was at Sandy Creek versus Cedar Grove a couple of years ago. I'm interviewing Devin Carter. You know what I'm saying? Pops just standing there watching us. And eventually, so the camera was off me for probably like over half the interview. He slides it over. He's like, man, you got to have your camera tight, man. What you doing? I said, Pop, you standing by the camera. But appreciate that insight, man. And I'd be remiss not to ask you about EJ, Ernie Johnson, man. Just kind of talk about, I know you're in the fraternity. I think if I'm saying it right, the fraternity with him. So just talk about how he is, off the camera, you get to see him more of a relaxed state. How is he and how has he kind of influenced you?
Absolutely. So yeah, at Georgia, that's the funny thing of I feel lucky I'm able to get a little bit of kind of the best of a few worlds of being at Georgia, trying to take advantage of every opportunity that I have, but then also being able to go elsewhere, go to recruiting stuff in Atlanta or around the Southeast, then go up to Clemson. And that to me is very lucky the way it's worked out. So, but the big thing is like when I see an opportunity, I'm like, you got to make the most of it. So the thing that I had a chance to do at Georgia is Chi Gamma Kappa. It's the University of Georgia Broadcasting Society, through the Grady College of Journalism. And Ernie Johnson got a Lifetime Achievement Award, and he came back to speak to us. He's been back actually 3 times in the past 9 months. And I'm just kind of like sitting there in the front row with my notebook, like, all right, everything he says, I'm writing it down because it's just that kind of knowledge. And he brought Kevin Harlan in on Zoom, and it's one of those that, it's not like we have a personal relationship. We kind of handshake when we talk, but the ability to ask him questions is something that my mom on the other side here always tells me. She's like, I think you'd be a good Ernie Johnson, or like you should have an Ernie job someday. And that's what she'll say. And to me, I'm always like, wow, there's not many of those. That's a lot to work up to. It's a few decades to get to. But it's one that, to me, the thing that's so special about him is it's the good guy that did everything the right way, that is like the most successful. You turn on NBA 2K, it's him and the guys talking. So that to me is one of those that, with him taking time to talk to people, with the lessons he teaches, most of them are character-based anyways. Obviously he's got plenty of advice for on-camera success that he shares that are, getting reps and those kinds of things, or starting at small markets, and him starting in Albany, Georgia, and those kinds of things. And then you look at the overall philosophy from him is one that is, I think, pretty similar for a lot of what you might hear from a mentor. For him, he's a Christian-based kind of theory, and it's talking about treating people the right way and always making sure that everybody in the building by name, and these little things that separate the great people from the good people. And that to me it gives me something to aspire to. And that's the most important part of just, making sure you have good role models. And that's one that I'm like, yeah, no, that's the role model for sure. Whether it's his job that I end up with or not, that's the type of person that I want to be like.
For sure, man. I appreciate you, man. I'm sliding to Najee, man. Let him unload on you.
Let me ask my question real quick, because I want to talk about this, and I think it's going to segue into Naj, because I remember my question now. Because one thing that I noticed about you right off the bat, and it's the same thing with Naj, is that y'all football knowledge, like y'all know so much about like high school footballers. Like I can be like, oh, the wide receiver from Douglas County, I'm like Aaron Gregory, like right off the bat, I can tell me his size and what year he's graduating and what schools are looking at him, and y'all have all that knowledge. So this is why I want to ask this question, because both of you are like this. Luke, what comes into your preparation when it comes to having that knowledge? And again, you told me about this before. I still don't comprehend it because it's like insane what you do. But tell the listeners how you prepare, and maybe Naj, you can give us an insight of what you do as well.
I've had some funny preparation methods in the past that I maybe wouldn't recommend, like maybe printing out the entire Rivals 250 and putting it on your wall until you have it memorized. That's a bit weird. I've done that. When I need to memorize something, I'm big on just print it out and look at it every day. And in class of 2022, like I was fresh into recruiting, and I was doing a show talking to guys across the country that were getting recruited. And if they mentioned a recruit and I didn't know who they were, or they mentioned like, oh yeah, this guy from my area, and I didn't have the knowledge to follow up on that, or to be like, oh, that's a 4-star. Wait, tell me about that relationship. Do you take visits together? All the things that could produce a good video or a good quote for an article. I didn't have the knowledge, partially because I was new, but partially just because I needed preparation work to get into it. So yeah, no, I did that. That was weird. I don't do that anymore. That's a bizarre thing. I have those moments for sure. I've gotten to be a big whiteboard guy. So if I flip the camera around, I've got a whiteboard, and I've got all the players in Georgia that I need to talk to, and then I've got their location of where they are. Like if they're super down south in Georgia and I may not be able to get to them, I put an S by their name so that I know maybe I need to see them at an event in Atlanta or Charlotte or somewhere. I'm like, I don't know if I can drive 5 or 6 hours for every player on here, but I definitely want to get to talk to them or do it virtually. So then I'll have another category of kind of the up and comers. So I've got 26 and then 27 guys that I need to know, and then a couple of 28s now, because that's just where we are in the recruiting world. You have to know the guys will be playing in college at the earliest in 2028. We got to know everything about them. So that's on there. I've got a couple of guys there that'll do a lot of work this spring on the list. And then we move over a little bit, and I've got a couple of charts of like who's going to be at the Under Armour camp that I need to go talk to. And I already have it in my head. So if my boss were to be like, hey, who are we talking to at Under Armour? I could go, for me, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4. And I've got the order of priority, and I've got, here's going to be the best story. I've got story ideas on the far left side. So people always talk about writer's block. I've been taught, one of my professors gave me a book, and it's one of the principles of it is writer's block doesn't exist. So to me, if you don't want to have writer's block, or if you don't want to have trouble writing, do your story ideas ahead of time. And then when you want to do it, you've got them all there. So I've got a story log there. I've got a calendar above it. So whiteboards for me, just all over the walls is, wake up and I look at a few sports flags over here, and then it's the whiteboard. And to me, that's how I keep it straight. That's the preparation. And then overall, the more you write and you're writing about these guys, once you do the research to write about a player, usually you're not going to forget that. So the time that now, getting into the fourth full recruiting cycle for me that I've covered, now it's okay. I've been writing about this guy since 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. I've mentioned this guy before. So that's the preparation, but it's a lot to keep in order. I don't always have it. There's guys that, guys like Jeremy Johnson, for example, will mention a player and I'm like, who's that? How did I miss him? Or how do I not know him? But then that's a reinforcement that's like, hey, as soon as you get home, you're doing your homework. You got to go look into some of these guys because new people pop up every day, whether it's college football, recruiting, NFL draft, Senior Bowl. I had a whiteboard for the Senior Bowl watch list, and I actually earlier tonight just wiped it off, and I was super proud of it. I'm like, there we go. It's over. We're good. And moving on to the next one. So whiteboards at Goodwill are a big thing for me. I'll buy them every time I see them because each idea gets a new whiteboard.
Gang, man. That's a game.
Might have to flip that camera around for me.
I don't know. Some of those whiteboards have a few things on there that I don't think I could show because I do priority on there of kind of how good I think players are too. And sometimes I'm pretty wrong on that. So, and I like to be wrong when I say guys maybe aren't as good as advertised. I'm happy for that, but not right now.
Go ahead, Naj.
Yeah, man, I would just ask you, Luke, I think you do a really good job of this. Just talk a little bit about the Winston Media brand, and I think this will be very useful for obviously Bacon and Jerome, just how you're able to plug in the independent contractor. Like you got me thinking as well. I've talked to you numerous of times just about being able to kind of do different things, different projects, but being able to put it under your umbrella and your brand and make a little bit of money off. So just kind of talk about a little bit about that side of it and not have to necessarily, like you work for obviously your boss at Clemson Sports Hall, but you also do your own thing as well, and you're able to get your brand out there and continue to grow.
I think it's a great idea for people that don't have an exclusivity contract with people they work for. I think that's the key. So, if I had gotten an exclusive where I signed with a big company and they're like, you're only with us, then Winston Media's got to go on pause. But as long as that doesn't happen, or until that does happen, which is something contractually I would try to fight or try to negotiate out if I could to keep my own brand involved, but that, that can get hard. But regardless of that, if you're in the situation where you can do your own stuff, highly recommend. It's something, you pay once a year to have the incorporation or the LLC fees covered. And then once you pay it, you're good to go. You're a media company and you can apply for credentials. And then because you're a company, because you're protected liability wise, because you're protected, in the state of Georgia, you can go out and say, here's my body of work, credential me or don't. And there's plenty of people that don't. The NFL is something that's like, Winston Media, you got some ways to go. And say, all right, cool. But for now, as far as it goes with high school events, as far as it goes with the Senior Bowl, draft events, some collegiate events, depending on the school, it gives me an ability to, because think about, let's say that Clemson didn't have any players at the Senior Bowl. And I'm like, hey, I'm from Clemson Sports Talk. I want to go to the Senior Bowl. there's going to be some questions of like, what are you doing? But for me, I'm like, hey, Winston Media, here's how I'm organized. Here's how I do it. Here's the purpose. Here's where it's going. Here's the content creation. Here's the viewership number. Any questions that could come up could be solved, and they could be, solved as quickly as a look on the website just to see kind of what I'm about. And the website's something I'm constantly updating. It's evolving. It's something that when you own your own company, you can do whatever you want with your website, and that's great, but it's also a bit daunting because you could do literally anything with it. And it's one that in today's world, I think you've got to have your own brand. And I think that there's some media people that I've seen that go from working for a really big company, but when they lose that company label, their personal brand might not have been strong enough to support them in the meantime. And that's something that like right now I definitely would struggle with because I'm still growing, but I want to get to a point where the personal brand is so strong that if I worked for a big company and something happened and I'm kind of a free agent again, or I'm in one of those waiting periods, I'd like to have the brand. And to me, it's one of those things that between Winston Media, the Luke Winston Show, I'm not a very creative name, guys, I'm sorry, but it's just what it ended up as. Between that, it gave me something that people can't take away. You can get fired from a job, you can have COVID happen, and I was working like 5 or 6 little freelance jobs that all kind of patched together to help pay for school. Lost all of them at the same time, but you couldn't take away the show. So I was still doing the show during COVID. So it gives you that one thing as a media person that you always have something to lose, but when you have your own company, you've got a certain element of freedom that I strongly recommend people go after because it's not very expensive. It just takes a little time, a little organization, and hopefully a little bit of support from your inner circle. And to me, it can be a really good decision. And I haven't fully maximized the potential of what this could be yet. I'm not even close. And it's something that I would like to do, but it takes a lot of work. So it's going to take some time. And if you're willing to do that, I'd strongly recommend it.
No doubt. And then I want to ask you, Luke, who were some guys that, when you were coming in, you talked about your journey and being at Milledgeville and going to Georgia College State University and going to obviously now UGA, but who were some guys when you were coming up that just kind of had that influence on you, was kind of helped you get to where you are today? And then in your eyes, who do you think are some of the young guys that are coming up now that could potentially, set their mark in the industry, upcoming guys that be college? Just who are some guys like you think underrated but could potentially have a big brand here pretty soon, just as far as journalists, not players?
Yeah, cool. Okay. It's a double barrel question here. We'll start. First one, we'll go people I looked up to. Being an Atlanta kid growing up, I was looking at this coming back from Mobile. I think we're at like 14 minutes away from Mercedes-Benz Stadium with no traffic to where I grew up, my parents' house, over kind of near Chamblee in that area, Northeast. So growing up there, to me, it was all Atlanta sports. Like I loved college football and it was always fun to watch, but I was actually more of a pro sports kid, which is something that I didn't share as much with my peers growing up as I do now. Now I'm such a big college football fan in a way, passionate about that. So that's changed. But being a pro sports, wanted to be a GM originally and looking at these teams because I love roster management, which now in college football we have GMs. So maybe that's part of why I like college football more than I used to. The roster management, the managing money of when a player goes in the portal. My first thought is, wait, he was making how much do we think? Where does that money go now? And then what does that get you? Does that get you a recruit? Does that get you a portal player? Who do you look at? What are the rumors on the street here? So maybe that's part of why college sports has become more interesting, but also we're on the verge of really losing some people if we don't fix some of what's going on. But beside the point, because I liked those kinds of things, I was a pro sports guy. So 92.9 The Game, Atlanta radio was always a really big thing for me. People like Jason Longshore and Mike Conti that covered soccer, Steve Holman on basketball, just unbeatable on the call. He was the guy that I looked up to, especially being basketball used to be my favorite sport too, late in high school. So I would listen to him and, his calls, Dennis Schroeder, for the love of God, those kinds of things. He's dribbling it off his foot. And, Zion Williamson lately, if you heard that one, Zion Williamson, what a loser. Some of Steve's calls, he's just says his own stuff. And it's not a style that I could ever pull off, but he has those memorable calls that you as a fan, it entertains you. You maybe feel that way, maybe you don't. So that was a big one I looked up to. Bob Rathbun, Atlanta Hawks on TV. was there with Dominique and, still is with Dominique for a while. So I think West Durham was one. I mean, you see a theme here. It was all play-by-play guys because originally I wanted to be play-by-play. So to me, that is the position that maybe requires more talent than the others in sports media. And that's one that I don't say that because I do it. I'm really doing more other stuff now, and that gives me even more admiration for it. But play-by-play being so tough to me, it was like, man, if I could do that, I think I could do the other jobs in sports media too. So that was one to me that those were people I looked up to. West Durham can call anything. Wiley Ballard, those kinds of people. He does sideline work. That's what I was looking up to. And then AJC kind of column-wise, I mean, Mark Bradley always has something interesting to write, whether you agree with him or not. Dave O'Brien, who covered the Braves. So, it's a lot of people, but those were my influences of the Atlanta sports media back in like the 2015-ish era. Those are the people that if you look at my style, there's probably, if I'm doing anything right, some touches of those people around there. So in terms of people coming up next, I think, I don't know if you guys count, but all three of you are, there. I don't know if you count as up and coming anymore because I think y'all are pretty much here at this point. But that is something that, and we got your group. We've got, let's see, Dylan Clearfield and Will Morrison. I almost mixed the last names, but I know those guys very well. I like them a lot. So I know you were just hanging out with Will and Najee. Those are a couple of guys that I've kind of pinpointed, and you know how people talk in the industry. I've been talking to some people about them kind of behind closed doors, and now here on the show talking about these are some guys that have really bright futures because, again, I look at traits. There's a lot of people that love sports or love media, but they maybe can't handle it or can't do it, or they'd be better served in other areas. Maybe their talents would be better off in a different spot. But those are a couple of guys that I look at and I'm like, okay, if you mean what you're saying, you got a lot going on. And then I've seen both of them really start to show that. And now I say, okay, you guys are going to be some that really get it done. I've always been kind of curious of who are the people for me, now 4 recruiting cycles in, but really 3 years in, I've kind of been waiting and looking like, okay, who's going to be next up behind me? Who are the people that are going to push me to evolve and push me to get better? And those are a couple of guys that I feel like are either doing that or are going to do that.
No doubt. My last one, I'll throw it back to you, Jerome. Luke, just kind of talk about these big time camps first. Like, what's your best method? Like, if you're just like, let's say like you're like me or you're like Bacon, like we obviously like we're known a little bit in the industry, but we're trying to get more out there and kind of build more of a national brand. What's the best way to be able to get into these major time camps to get even more exposure for not only the athletes, but for ourselves as well? And then what's your best advice to get into some other camps that are across the country, the Rivals, the 247, some of the major time camps, the FBUs, in your opinion?
Yeah, big thing to me is knowing somebody that knows everything is the key. So there's a lot of people in the industry, like I'm not shy to say this, Jeremy Johnson on 3, somebody that I've really looked up to for a long time, still look up to, even though it kind of feels like peers sometimes when we're at events because we're doing the same stuff, but it's like, I still look up to you a lot. Like it's people like that you eventually get to the point where you're like, hey, I'm looking to do this. Do you know who I should email? And then that's where that comes in of it's something that you've built a relationship and you've gotten to the point where you guys know each other and they don't mind. So there's plenty of people, for me, like Dylan and Will, for example, have both asked me about how to get into stuff. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I know what you're trying to get into. I know who does this. Like DM this person or email this email. And if you don't get a response, then call this. And I kind of know like what people may or may not reply to on the first time. So I'm like, hey, just so you know, this guy doesn't usually reply to my email the first time. So you're going to have to follow up. And the little coaching things just from people that have even done it for a year. So to me, it's finding those people that, if you can't get your own way in, usually there's an online credential application. For most of the major events, that's kind of on you to use Google as your friend of at least, look at every single page on the site until you find some semblance of contact information. Jerome, I know you're good at this because I've seen you do it a couple of times. Not to mention the other times I haven't seen. And then you text them and you call them and you email them and you say, hey, this is what we're trying to do. Can we do it? And sometimes you have to be persistent. The biggest thing is if you don't get an email back, you can't take it personally. You can't be let down. You got to move on. You got to move on, and you got to find another way to get to them. So you get to that. And then the biggest thing is once you get to an event, what do? Like Jerome knows, I can be pretty talkative at events, but there's certain points where I'm maybe not the best person to stand next to because I'll get locked in and Jerome will be like, hey man, how about that play? And I'm like, uh-huh. And I just keep going and I'm locked in and I'm like, I'll apologize. I'll try to remember to apologize later of like, hey, I'm sorry. That wasn't the nicest way to end the conversation there. But, I'm going after guys, especially Senior Bowl. As soon as they open it up and we're walking in, I'm going. And, sometimes people try to say hi and I'm like, hey, and then just keep walking because you got to be so laser focused. It's not very nice, but I got to get these interviews and I'll talk to y'all later.
I got
to
Yeah.
You're probably reminding Jerome of some stories here.
I got a story. So we was at the Super Bowl, right? So I'm there with my my partner, Sam Kirk, very good, goes to Penn State. I met him in the last podcast. Really good kid. So we're just sitting there and like we're just talking about stuff, and it's funny because we're already just talking about Luke. It's so funny that he just like literally came out of nowhere. So like I seen his dad first. So his dad's over here talking to us, blah blah blah, and then he's like, oh yeah, we're about to go in there, so we'll see you later. All right, cool. I see Luke walk past, and he's walking like kind of fast. And I'm like, yo, Luke. He's like, kept walking. I'm like, oh, is you hollering for us? Oh my goodness. But I understood. I was like, dude, like, and I came to him. I was like, dude, like, I said hi to you. What happened? And he was like, oh man, I was so focused. I'm so sorry. But I just tell you how he is. Like, he's very focused on what he wants, and he's very persistent. So, I admire that from him, and he don't mean no harm by it. That's why I always laugh and joke about it and tease him about it. But it was just so funny how he just like it was like I was like he was some big ESPN announcer. I'm like, hey, let me just name somebody. Hey, I was Rennie, and he just like, hey, and kept going. I'm like he don't know me. I'm like, okay. So everybody.
Regrettably, I think I gave him the politician wave.
Literally.
But to me, that is the difference between hitting your list or hitting what you wanted and not. I hate to say it. And I love to be talkative, and hopefully I'll find a better way to go about this as I kind of mature in this industry. But the thing for me was we were going to the national team breakfast, and it was in a ballroom. And ballroom for me, like just like what I got right now, I do like an LED light setup because I have no chance. It's different. Like one of the things I have to try to handle and try to manage a little bit is the camera for me has the auto face focus, but it focuses on whatever's the brightest, which in most interviews is me. And the problem is you don't want me to be the focus because the player is the focus of the interview. But we're in a ballroom with low lighting, and we have some players that have skin that's a lot of tones darker than mine, and I want to make sure that the camera is not getting me. And, you have guys, I'm trying to think, Chris Braswell, for example, one that I had to, right when we started the interview, I was like, wait, hold on here. The lighting's not right. So getting into that, I was like, man, I got to get the lighting right. We got to do it. And it's those little things that are the difference between a good interview and a bad interview with a player that could be a first or second round pick. And that to me is, getting into the event's good, but once you get in, of making sure that everything is so sharp and so tight and everything's ready to go, and making sure that as soon as something happens, you can identify it really quickly, because as soon as a guy like Ricky Pearsall looks like his interview is about to end, you got to go over and get your body language correct so everybody knows that you're next up, and you got to go and make sure your questions are right in your head and you know how you're going to lead into it. So that's the thing to me, that once you get into the event is just being super detail oriented. And sometimes to me that means maybe giving a little bit of a wave and not being as nice as I hope to be.
Sorry, I see. That's why I have your dad. So it's all good.
Yeah, that's what he's there for. He's got to make up for me. We have to balance each other out.
Definitely, man. So obviously, like I said, we knew each other for about like 3 years now, and literally like these events that we go on, you know, we there, we do talk, you know, it's not like you're a robot. You do talk and we do talk and stuff like that.
Maybe too much.
Just going and seeing how you interact with other people and talk with other people. What made you so? I mean, again, it might be a little bit of that, but what made you so sociable and understanding like it's more than just getting the interview or just going there for what we need to do, obviously for us to, you know, do our jobs, but you know, you go beyond that. You go talking to people and you reach out to people, and that's how, you know, I think you kind of interact with each other when we at the Senior Bowl. So tell us a little bit about like how do you balance that and like how do you approach a new face each time you go to a different event?
Yeah, I mean, just knowing the structure of the event or guessing the structure will help. So to me, things like the Senior Bowl, we've been there long enough. We know the practice structure. So indie drills and walkthroughs, there's usually no content to be gained. There's not really, you know, unless you're really focused on the fluidity of someone's hips, you're probably not like super immersed in that individual drill, for example. So that's my time where I say, okay, let me go meet somebody new. And I always tell people, talk to everyone that you see. And even once you do that, just keep talking to people, making rounds, trying to get to where you're familiar. There was someone I saw earlier today from the Georgia Association of Broadcasters, and he's like, you look familiar. And I was like, we've probably talked somewhere on some sideline. And then we try to trace it back. And now, even though we're not friends, we're a step closer. We're getting to really know each other just because of the familiarity, because it's like, I feel like I've spoken to you before. And maybe you have. We're thinking about it, trying to connect it. So to me, the big thing that my dad taught me was kind of coming out of COVID. I was a little more socially anxious. Like I'd see people and I'd be a little more like, should I approach them for an interview? Like, how do they feel? What are they thinking? Just the classic overthinking everything kind of, are they going to be mad at me? Am I wasting their time? Like all these kinds of things. And then my dad, you know, there's obviously like fortune favors the bold, but there's also the like success favors the bold in general.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you know, my dad's a bold guy. He'll come up and talk to you and he's real nice about it. So learning some of that approach of knowing that I should walk up to people, be super nice. And then if there's something that we should do or something I want to ask, there's certain points in conversation where you do that. But even things like, for example, you know, Najee, when we met Brookwood at Grayson in 2022, that was a end of game situation that wasn't super compelling. It was a blowout game. So we had a lot of time to chop it up. And that was a good time for us to talk. And not every time it's calculated, but I find that a lot of times when we do have that, like, okay, we're sitting here, it's a blowout high school game. We can either just be quiet and, you know, sit there, or we can try to develop a relationship. And it's something that Jerome, for example, you know, we got a good bit of talking the first time we met in the gravel parking lot outside the press conference room. Like those kinds of things of just knowing when to approach people and kind of having it in your head. Even if you do have that social battery that starts to drop with interactions and you try to say, okay, you know, starting to go down, or I want to manage it. There are times where I do feel like I need to manage the social battery. So I'll say, okay, I'll take pictures during warmups. I'm going to meet two new people or one new person or whatever during individual drills. And then, you know, shoot photos of 7-on-7 and then go out and do interviews. And after interviews, I'll chat it up because hopefully we're all going to be happy because we've hopefully got everything we needed. And then the conversation flows well. So that's a bit of the strategy for me when I do have it. Sometimes it is just totally natural of, you know, hey, we're standing next to each other. Let's be friends, or let's try to be, you know, some people aren't receptive to it, but you just move on and you just kind of keep meeting new people. And eventually when you've got the network, maybe there's a chance that you can call in a favor, or, you know, there's players that Najee knows that I don't know, for example, that I could call him about now and say, hey, you know, what do you think of this guy? I saw you just wrote about him. I don't know anything about him. And then vice versa. And we can be a resource to each other. There's things inside of football, outside of football that, you know, we can talk about when you have that kind of relationship. So for us spending so much time with each other, so many nights and so many weekends, I think if you don't do it, you're really missing out on something cool.
All right. You guys got any other questions before we get to our next segment?
Yeah, I mean, I'll ask you a question, brother. Super detail oriented. That's one thing I always have, and obviously to this day I admire about you, man. You're always in the media, man. I talk on here a lot about not being too tapped into the technology. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, it sounds like you kind of not be in your thoughts, but kind of you got to be in yourself to like like you just said, I'm take photos here. I'm gonna meet 2 new people at this time, so you're really detailing your steps. You know what I'm saying? How do you kind of balance being on the phone and still kind of, you know what I'm saying, woosah within with being really consumed by media, internet, TV, sports, and highlights? So how do you kind of, how do you do that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to me is learning, like, I think I took a hit on my brand by not live tweeting the Senior Bowl practices, because I mean, I could have done it, and I did it last year, and I got a lot of views from it last year, and I said, man, I got to do it again this year. And I get there, and I'm like, that's not the right thing to do. There were certain things of, like, talking to Jerome and Sam and getting good shots, and there were some times, I mean, I hate to say it, I think I'm still red. I try to get the lighting so you can't see it, but I'm still so sunburned. There was a practice where I was like, man, I got to watch this one from the car. And I've got the little like tape up on my phone while I'm sitting there, editing stuff of like, I got to manage this so I'm not too tired to get a good interview out at the end of it. So learning how to manage of like, okay, I'm not going to get every single thing, but I'm going to get the important things. So I made sure that with the way I go about it is knowing what to do and what to not do, and how to, for example, there's a lot of things you should do, but to me, I'm like, I'm going to pass on this for right now. There's a few things that I look at of, for example, I've missed commitments before because I was like, hey, family dinner, phone's shut off. Because if the phone's on, I'm looking at it, I'm going to check it, I'll see a notification. But there's times like last night, I wanted to read a book, shut the phone off. Sometimes I'll put it in some like obscure place that would be hard to get to. I've got a shelf in my closet sometimes. Like, I hate this. It sounds like an addiction, which it probably is. And it's just always on the phone. So I'll just toss it up there on the shelf. And to me, it's the phone's either shut off or it's shut on. So those are the things of knowing what things you cannot do and kind of get away with and it still be okay. Otherwise, I think you drive yourself crazy, so that's the key of just it's on or it's off. Things are on or they're off. I'm either there or I'm not. I'm either, one thing or the other. There's times where I should have been doing more content, but I wasn't because it's what I needed to do to kind of keep myself sane. And I've turned out all right from it. So just knowing that you don't have to do everything, don't overwhelm yourself. It's something that is a very daunting thing, covering an event, for example. Like, it's one that you just have to learn to manage, learn what actually matters, what actually doesn't. If I don't post this picture right now, are people going to react? Do they care? Generally, no one cares at all. But there's certain times where if I interview like Javon Bullard, for example, that interview needed to be up within the hour. And I was like, this has to happen. There's certain things where that. So I went out of my way to exert extra energy, even though it was like a 12-hour day. Got to do this right now. It's got to go right now. Got to beat, because everybody was interviewing him. So I wanted to beat everybody. So those kinds of things of, when to go on and when to go off. And you have to predetermine that. You have to visualize things. I'll look on Google Maps, for example, of like, okay, I'm going to walk in. I'm going to go in this door. I'm going to stand here. I'm going to be like Jerome knows what corner I want to photograph from in the stadium at the Senior Bowl. Same corner, bottom right. That's what it's always going to be. I get good shots every year there. And once I visualize it, then I'm prepared. And it's all preparation for me. So that's the way.
Great answer, brother. Thank you, man.
I'm glad you said that, Luke, because there have been times in my situations where, sometimes battery might die or, something might happen where you're just like, dang, like it's figuring out how you're going to maximize what you're doing. And not all the time you're going to be able to be like, all right, like I'm tired. Like there's sometimes, honestly, I skip out on interviews just because I feel like I'm tired and I'm not going to have a good interview. But I'm going to maximize this opportunity to talk to the player, let them know who I am still, even if you're not getting an interview, or go, interact with somebody else, where you can get good ties to them and, create that relationship with people. So I'm glad you said that, because that was actually, I think that's really important for everybody to understand, like, don't burn yourself out trying to get something, but also, like, have an idea of what you want to do and have a game plan. So like if that certain situation doesn't happen, you can still pivot from that.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's one of those that I've got a professor, Vicky Michaelis at Georgia. She was a cover writer for USA Today, big sports writer, covered the Olympics, Michael Phelps, the whole deal. And she's so intense on these things that we were in Australia together over the summer covering the Women's World Cup, and she was helping us out with all that. And it was one like, you make an error that you shouldn't make, like that's not someone you want to disappoint. And you get to the point where eventually the teachings from a professor like her get to where like I got extra batteries and they're all charged and they're all set, and it almost feels like I work harder to get my bag packed than I do at events sometimes, which is a weird thing to say, but I would spend like an hour or two making sure every single thing and checking every single thing and every SD card and put it into my computer and then checking it again and making sure I've got enough space and being almost paranoid about that. That's the thing that I learned from her and one of my professors, Mark Johnson, photojournalism professor. And those little things of like, every single thing has to be down to it. I've got my notebook, and checklists are the best thing for me to do that kind of stuff. So that's something I've improved on, because I have had times where my voice recorder has run out of storage space, and I've made every mistake in the book, even within the past year. And I'm just, man, this is wrong and this is bad and this didn't work. And then eventually it's been enough mistakes to learn from for me. And that's something that, like, I know for you, for example, I think, Jerome, you had, I told you this on the phone, I want to say it here in public too. I think you had the highest quality video content here from the Senior Bowl in terms of the interviews outside of a rights holder. So that's something that I've seen you grow into, and getting the details of how sharp your cameras look and how you're going to frame your stuff, so that, the way you're going to edit it and get the backgrounds right. So that's something that, like, I feel like we all grow in as we go. And for you, you've gotten to the point where stylistically you're able to really show your stuff. And I thought that was really cool.
Appreciate that, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
My last one, I think that's a close out, man. So, the boys giving me a little grief, probably give you a little grief, Jerome and Bacon. I know they were trying to get you on the show, man, and it was like, what? Nas, you asked him when he comes on, bro, what's up with that? What's up with that? So, talk about just the power of relationships, because I feel like, in my opinion, you correct me if I'm wrong, Lou, I just feel like, over the past year and a half, man, almost 2 years, like, we just gotten real close. Like, I entrust you with information, you entrust me with stuff. And I feel like, and I told him, I said, I feel like you always come and you check up on me, see how I'm doing. Hey, what's your thoughts on this? And I feel like we have really good verbiage back and forth with each other. And I feel like we really create a really powerful professional, just, friendship, man, in the industry. You're somebody I can rely on and depend on. But just talk about that power of relationships, man.
Yeah, thank you. Tuesday nights are a rough one for me, but then when all three of you had asked, I was like, I can't turn it down again. So it's nothing personal about anybody. It was just it being the third time. 3 is kind of that number for me where, once you get to the third time, like, you better not. Now you're just a bad person in a way. Like, you can't turn it down a third time. Like, come on, man. So I was like, all right. I got it tonight. Like, and it's not Tuesdays forever. It's just Tuesdays here in the spring. That was all that was tough. And we made it work. And I appreciate that from y'all having me on. And the thing that I look at in terms of relationships is it's always the thing that, okay, here's a good story actually that I like to tell. I don't think I've told any of y'all this. Maybe Jerome, maybe. But sometimes you meet people and you have that, I don't want to say this moment of like, I don't want to say it. Knock on wood, right? If you're that kind of person. But I think my life might have just changed. So the thing for me, and this is going to sound funny because this is not the typical, like, it's not like I got a call from, the Washington Post that says you're hired. It's not like that. I was in my dorm room in Milledgeville, and I'm looking for ways to get into football. So I DM'd every recruit that I could find. Like I told you, I had it all printed out. So I'm DMing everybody. And then one recruit, you're going to know him, Chief Borders here, DMs me back. And he says, hey, call this person. If he says it's cool, then we'll set up the interview. And I call a phone number. Turns out it's Coach Mill. We all know Coach Mill. Yeah. And he picks up the phone and we're talking, and the conversation was okay. But then he mentioned how he was handling business with Kyle Hamilton and how he helped Kyle Hamilton get discovered. I was like, oh, Kyle Hamilton, I used to play against him in basketball. And play is a loose term. But Not as bad as it was against JD Bertrand. I got to tell JD at the Super Bowl, Notre Dame linebacker. My dad is responsible for this. He made me guard JD in middle school basketball, and now JD is going to be in the NFL. And it took about 2 possessions before I told one of my teammates, I'm like, man, we got to switch. Like, it's not working. But that, Catholic Basketball League, we had JD and Kyle Hamilton. I played in there, and a few guys that ended up playing like D2, D3 level in college. And I was, talking to Coach Mill about, oh, yeah, Kyle Hamilton. Like, I remember watching him and the way he was dunking on people and always, shredding my school, St. Pius. And as soon as I said that, he was like, oh, Atlanta. And we kind of caught on in 6 degrees of separation. After first minute or two of the conversation was about as stale as the conversation with Mill gets, because those aren't stale conversations anytime. But it was one where we weren't getting a whole lot of talk there. It was just kind of small talk, and then that kind of woke us up and got us going. He invites me to a camp. Got to talk to interview Kevin Sumlin and talk to him about Johnny Football and what he's up to and his work with ESPN, and then looking at Richard Young, who's at Alabama now, and talking to Chief and some of the players from that camp that went on to do really big things. And that, to me, was the first time that my Twitter really started going. I think I got maybe 250,000 impressions just from that camp. I was the only one there live tweeting except for Jeff Sintel, and that's where I met Jeff. Now, Jeff's been a big mentor for me. So then Mill got me in the door, and that's where I met Dale Dowden as well. And then Dale's the one that told me about Corky Kell. And then I get to Corky Kell, and then Mill sets me up with Travis Hunter for a double exclusive. And we're sitting there in the Mercedes-Benz suite, like wondering if we're supposed to even be here or how I got in this situation. And then we're doing Travis Hunter exclusives, and, Mill gets me started into it. But after that first phone call, my roommate's girlfriend was sitting out on the couch. I said, hey, I think my life just changed. And she's just sitting there like, I don't care. Let me eat my cereal kind of thing. And I told her after the first call with Mill, I think that changed. But it's those relationships to me of people are like, how do I get into it? And I was like, you just got to get into it. Send a DM to everybody that'll text you back, because today it's more accessible than ever. I know it's maybe more daunting than ever. More accessible, not successful, more accessible than ever, but more daunting. But if you want it, you're going to get it, because you'll go and send DMs and meet people. And then you get into the situation where, with Mill, set me up, got me going. We still talk. I love to go out to his camps and see what he's all about, and see when he brings out Dan Mullen and Super Bowl champions and all these people that I grew up watching that he's so tight with. And, he introduces me to Jim Harbaugh at camps. And it was all from that one DM, that one phone call, the one moment of just calling someone. I didn't even know whose phone I was calling. I didn't know the area code. I think it was maybe Chicago. And it was something that we just got to know each other, and he got me started. So he's the one that, in terms of, how did I get into recruiting media? That was the moment I went from a virtual podcast host trying to cover the whole country and just try to do something interesting to covering on the ground stuff in Georgia. So that's how quickly it can change, and that's how big of a impact that it can make for you.
Definitely. Hey, Coach Mill was I believe he was our first guest on this podcast. Yep.
I booked that one.
Yes, sir. So shout out to Coach Mill. I'm sorry for laughing in the middle of your story there, Luke. I'm pretty sure you know what I'm laughing about. I don't want to say it on air, but yeah. Luke has some funny stories, man. He has some funny stories. But any other questions, or do you want to move on to? All right, so let's move on to some Senior Bowl review. So let's not make this too long. I'm glad that we got to talk about yourself a little bit, Luke, and I think it was really good for the listeners to see and hear how you got into the business. But let's get into some Senior Bowl real quick, Brett. I'm about to call you Ray. Luke, what is some of the players that kind of stood out to you down there while we was down there?
Yeah, to me, it was wide receivers. I came in thinking that might be the best group there, and I left pretty convinced of it. Even, day 3, getting to look back and watch on the tape and see what we saw. And I'm looking at maybe a dozen guys from the Senior Bowl going in the top 100 at the receiver position. I think it really is something that could happen, not a guarantee, not something I'd bet on, not that I would ever bet. But when I look at the national team, I look at a guy like Javon Baker. Malachi Corley was one that impressed. Corley to me is one maybe that's moving his way toward the second round. He told me he's pretty dead set. He says, I'm running a 4.3 at the combine. I asked him what he expects to run. I'm running a 4.3. All right. I like the confidence, small school guy, you got to find a way to stand out. And I think he did, wore the tight white shirt, the couple of chains, looking real clean on media day. And everybody else was wearing the black sweatsuit, and he's coming in and greeting people and big smile. And one of those where I think he was doing everything he could to stand out and try to make sure that he was able to get his message out there. And he backed it up, top receiver on his team for the week, voted by his peers. And then the combines where people are, we'll see what happens. Guys like Ladd McConkey, you think the hype's big now, wait till he runs a 4.3, those kinds of things to me, if he does. The combine stuff is always funny because, all of us, we watch college football, we see it, sometimes we get to cover it. And we're looking at these guys and we're like, yeah, we know he's good. Like, why are y'all just figuring this out? It's so funny with the draft process of people that, how do you cover the draft and don't cover college? Or how do you do that and you're not a big college guy? Like, you're not getting hired if I'm the director, if that's how you operate. You better be the biggest college football person I've ever met if you're going to cover the draft. Because I get it, not everyone projects and not every good college player becomes a good pro player. And we have some group chat discussions about that with a few friends. I know that we're in Jerome, for example, and we talk about that and talk about what guys were comfortable going where. But the thing that I look at is, you got to be such a big college football guy. And to me, looking from that, especially getting to cover the ACC on a pretty much weekly basis, Tez Walker, I got to see what he's about. Got to see him against good competition, Nate Wiggins, who, maybe cornerback 1 or cornerback 2, cornerback 3, regardless, he should be a first-round pick. He's going to run well at the combine. And Tez got him on a route going early in the game, and that was something where I started to say, okay, I've heard the hype, but I'm starting to see him be legit. You look at the highlights, you look at he's working with an NFL quarterback, so I think it's something what he can do with that kind of thing. So Tez, I think Brendan Rice made some money, maybe moved up a round, if not more, with what we saw early on with his first impression. Pearsall from Florida, to me, I think stood strong as maybe a mid-70s kind of player. And then Aniyah Smith from Texas A&M, I thought he had a pretty good finish to the week. So that's on the American team. Jamari Thrash. I know there were a couple of drops in there that people might knock him for. He's not the biggest guy. He is, alum of Troup County High School, so congrats to Coach Glisson and them. I think you've got a draft pick coming up probably in the top 100 now, so big ups to Troup County. For this show, had a lot of Georgia boys there, and I love it. The Senior Bowl, we got in Jaheim Bell, Trevin Wallace, Dejon Edwards from Colquitt, Thrash, Ladd McConkey from North Murray, Jalen Simpson down south, Frederica Academy, Justin Aboigby from Forest Park, Kamani Vidal from Marietta, Cole Bishop, who credit to Brooks Austin. Brooks is the one that kind of woke me up to Cole Bishop being a legitimate NFL player. Javon Baker, J.D. Bertrand, Torrey Taylor, Javon Bullard from Milledgeville. So that was one where I lived about a mile away from him for a while. And people in Milledgeville were like, oh, wow, he's going to Georgia. Like, I even had a couple of people in Milledgeville tell me Javon Bullard was going to never play at Georgia, but they're just happy he's going to wear the G. There were some doubters even in Milledgeville that I knew in sports media. They're like, oh yeah, Javon, yeah, good for him. He's going to go and, get to be at Georgia. Good job, man. And then now to see him be a superstar and probably a top 100 pick is something that, he's got the bet on me tattoos and the type of guy that is just got that mentality. And it's one that if you start to say, oh, I'm not sure he'll be a great player, I'm not sure he'll be a starter, I'm not sure he'll be an MVP or an NFL player, just keep saying that and you'll be wrong. You'll just always be wrong about Javon Bullard if you doubt him. And that's something that there's certain players that I just say, I'm just not going to talk about this player if I don't believe in him because he's going to just prove me wrong. Even though you might say maybe he's a little undersized or maybe he's a little slower, this, that, the other, he's going to prove you wrong. So that to me, the Georgia representation and the Senior Bowl was a cool storyline to get to cover. And we had a few top performers from that group from Bullard. And so I think that covers it.
Definitely. Now, I got a question because I like how you said that, if you're a college, you should be a college football fan if you're going to get into this industry as far as, draft recruiting and stuff like that. And I wholeheartedly think that's It's a good assessment. My thing too is everybody on here knows I'm a Michigan fan, and we had a Michigan player that kind of balled out there, Roman Wilson. As a Michigan guy, I love Roman Wilson for what he stood for, or everything like that. As a college football fan, I did not see him balling out like he did. So my question is for somebody like that, where you go into because I didn't even get to interview him. He was just that coveted. I was like,
Yeah,
man, can't even get my guy. Like, he was one of the top guys on my list. So I didn't get a chance to interview him because he balled out in the first practice, and then he goes on that, and then wound up not even playing in the game because he was like, yeah, I did enough. I'm out of here. So situations like that where you have a player that you have not high expectations for going to the Senior Bowl and ball out the way they do, how much stock do you put into that? And how did that kind of help you out with, like, maybe I have to look at more tape?
Yeah, I actually meant to mention Roman Wilson. I was not leaving him off to get at you, Jerome. There's certain points in time where I might do that on purpose. That was not one. No, just for context, guys, I mess with Jerome about being a Michigan fan because, Northern football, Southern football. I almost sent you a graphic last night, but I didn't want to bother you too late in the night about how Michigan's success has been fueled by recruiting Southern players. Harbaugh recruits players from the South more than any coach in the past couple of decades at Michigan. So, I'm always big on that of just covering Southern football. I kind of jokingly will jab at guys of like, SEC, right? ACC, right? Hey, that's a thing. So, but the talent level down here is great, and I think Michigan's benefited from pulling some of those guys. And credit to Harbaugh for recruiting them and putting in the effort the way he does. But with Roman Wilson specifically, that was one on day one where I kind of had him as a lower top 100 type of guy. Like I had the way I go on my Senior Bowl sheet is I put out the players, and then I'll put a bubble next to your name if you're a top 100, and I'll fill it in if I think you definitely should be top 100. And then I'll put a star if they're from Georgia, because that was something I was specifically covering. And then if you're from Clemson, I just put you in orange because there's no way I can go down to Mobile and not interview the people on the beat that I cover. So that was the strategy. And Roman was one that I circled as, okay, people say he's about a top 100 guy. And then I filled that circle in the first day of okay, I see it. I can speak on him. I know kind of what we're looking at here. And some of it to me, I like to put into context of kind of who he was going against. So he had guys like Kalen King coming into the week. He didn't have a good week, but he was one that we knew was a big name. And of course, Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo. And those were a couple of guys that he was in the DB group against him. So I know the competition. I see the history of the Senior Bowl. And then because of that, I'm looking at this maybe being even better than the previous couple of Senior Bowls that I've covered. So in terms of talent level, and I look at it and say, okay, DB group's pretty good. What does he do? Catch, acrobatic catch. And I'm starting to check boxes in my mind of, okay, anything he can't do. And then there comes a certain point where you don't really care what he can't do because you know that this guy is at least going in the third round, if not higher. And then you start to feel very comfortable with the player and feel like, okay, this is a guy that's proven what he is about. And I don't think he could have proved more until the combine. So that's one from an agent perspective. Totally understand the call. I would have done it too.
I was looking at this I'm happy for the guy. I'm just like, yeah, people know who he is. And then that's in the back of my head, I'm like, I'm not gonna get this interview, am I?
Nope.
I didn't. He didn't even come to media day. He didn't I tell you, I was on bacon the most important day down there at the Senior Bowl is media day. Yep. He didn't even come. He didn't even show up. So
yeah. That was kind of Ladd McConkey for me. I've had people around Athens did you talk to Ladd? I was like, no, he's untouchable. Did you see the routes he's running? They're not going to let us talk to him. He's taken care of. He's good.
I asked him twice. For an interview, and he denied me twice. So he was on his way out both times, but still, I'm like, come on.
Yeah, man. It's one of those things. When you've proven what you need to when you prove what you need to prove, there's nothing more to say. You're good. And there's a certain point where it's yeah, it's good to do interviews, and if I were an agent, I would advise my clients to do them. But at the same time, it was with a guy like that, Yeah, I get it. You've earned it. You've done your thing, man. And you just say, hey, props to you. I had that with Brendan Rice. He was like, nah, not right now. It's like, you've done your thing, man. You don't owe anybody anything. That's fantastic work.
Definitely. All right, one last question I'd like these guys talk about. Maybe you can ask both of us, but the quarterback position. Going into it, it was a position of like, man, this is very talented. Spencer Rattler. We had Michael Penix. We had Sam Hartman. We had Bo Nix. We had all those big name quarterbacks down there. How was that position for you? Do you think they kind of lived up to the hype, or do you feel like maybe there's some work that needs still to be done?
To me, it was an okay group. I think Bo Nix was disappointing, and that was one that kind of, especially earlier in the week, my focus was on those first couple of practices, and we didn't see a whole lot. There were a couple of times, I think even standing next to you, I was on a show last night talking about this. I was like, I was shooting photos next to a guy, and I saw a throw go over someone's head. I was like, man, that didn't look great. Who is that? And it wasn't Joe Milton. It was Bo Nix. And that was when, I hate to say it, Joe Milton, man, that was a really rough week. And I know he's got traits, and I know people can talk about it for days. I don't see it. I mean, I wish him the best, but that was one that, and I was like, oh, okay, some of the bad balls were on Milton on the American team. But then I was like, wait, this is national team. Who is that? And it was Bo Nix. And I was like, oh, that was not what I was expecting. There were some throws that weren't as sharp, and especially for someone whose completion percentage was that high. I do have a bit of a theory on him. I think he's better in game. I think I think when things are really going, I've seen him in some pressure situations be able to handle those things well. So maybe it was just a bad day or two, but I just don't think he looked good. Some people have dropped him even out of their top, 75, top 100s. I don't like to overreact like that. I think he's still a very good day 2 pick. He's got a shot to start in the NFL. I wouldn't bank on that, but there's enough potential there, and there's enough development and serious improvement since the Auburn days that I'm kind of lukewarm on it, but I'm definitely not comfortable if I'm first round on Bo Nix. So then Michael Penix, I'm feeling kind of into the first round. I thought he was good, not great. Had some moments to me that I like the videos where they reverse the video. So it looks like if you were throwing it with his right hand instead of his left, the release looks a little better. I know there's that. There's injury history. To me, there were some times where I didn't notice him, which in a way was good. You're going through drills and the balls are just coming out, going where they should be. Let the receiver either make a play or the DB make a play. And I felt from Penix that he didn't wow me. I'm not saying like top of the first, like, lottery pick type of guy. I'm not there, but I'm saying, okay, first round, feel good about it. Late first round, pretty good. Sam Hartman, day 3, not really my guy. I think I've caught him on some bad days when I've watched him play in college, for example, against Clemson this past year. And, last year against Clemson, really good. But this year, not quite. And there were some moments throughout the season where I did tune into Notre Dame on TV, and I was like, just not seeing it. And I feel that way in person of course, he's talented enough to be a day 3 pick. Someone's going to take him, and he's going to be a backup, and that's great. But I'm feeling maybe like 6th round or so on Hartman right now. I think Rattler from South Carolina, I was on the edge of top 100 pick with him coming into the week. Now I'm pretty solidly, I've filled in the bubble per se on Rattler on my notebook of, okay, yeah, this is top 100. I don't really expect him to start, but I do think he could be a backup that you put in and you say, there's a shot. There's a chance to win. I know, Jerome, in your interview, y'all talked about how he's matured. He's saying the right things. I'm just curious to see him continue to progress as we look at maybe he's one that when throwing sessions come around on pro day, especially with some of the receivers like Leggett that they have that they can put out there with him, there will be some really cool balls that I think make it to the NFL Network from that. So I think he starts to move up. 3rd round pick. Feel good about him being a quality backup, kind of in the role that I would think Desmond Ridder should be in, for example, of a backup that you're confident in, but just not a franchise quarterback. So I think you get that kind of guy in the 3rd round. I think Rattler's that guy. Joe Milton, I don't have a draftable grade on. I don't. Look at the tape this week. If you have any questions about that, I think that's covered. Michael Pratt from Tulane. I think I saw what I needed to see. Still feeling good about him somewhere in the 70s. Third round, I think, is fair. I don't think he's super upped his stock. I don't think he's super downed it. But I feel good about third round. And Carter Bradley from South Alabama, day 3 guy. There's some value there. I'm not super high on him, but somewhere in day 3, maybe toward the end of it, you're getting a player that can add some depth at quarterback. So that's kind of all 6 guys, just kind of my thoughts on coming out of the week where I am.
Definitely, man. I agree with most of what you say. I think that, I think for me, I think Penix was the most disappointing because I think we all kind of expected him to come in and be so elite. But like when you really think about like him being there with receivers that he never played with and, the rotation of that, he still played good. I just feel like we all came in like, man, Penix is going to light this thing up. He's going to be that guy and he's going to improve his stock. I don't think he really hurt or he's kind of like neutral right now. He didn't hurt it, but he didn't help it at the same time. So
yeah, I don't really like the excuse of their receivers he's never played with. I know it's a factor, but everyone's having to deal with it. And like you're in an NFL environment, one of the things we're literally gauging is how quickly you adapt because that's the NFL. It's pro football. Like I think at every level that's important. So to me, like I'm not going to knock a guy big time if he doesn't adapt well, but that's something that I'm like, people are like, well, he's playing with guys, not what you're saying. I think other people are much more extreme about that of like, oh yeah, he's playing with guys he's never played with before. I'm like, so what? Like, I know it's really hard. It's easier said than done, but also that's literally part of what you're here to show is that you can quickly pick up an offense. You can pick up a rhythm with receivers. I know it's so intricate. I know I've talked to some of these guys that have told me about it, but at the same time, this is part of the test. Like that's part of it. So to me, I just try to be careful with like Senior Bowl stuff of, I know there's new guys, but we are grading you on this specifically.
I like it. I like that. I like that assessment. You guys got any Senior Bowl questions y'all want to ask real quick?
I just ask. I didn't hear a little bit about Xavier Leggett this past week. I just want to hear y'all's just thoughts. You know what I'm saying, breakdown on his game.
Yeah. That's one that.
Say it again.
What was the name? I'm sorry.
Xavier Leggett, the receiver of South Carolina.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that was one to me. Like watching Clemson play. We look at South Carolina all the time, and I think that's one where, again, for me not being a Clemson fan, that helps because I'm looking at it like, hey, Rattler, Xavier, like there's a big play opportunity. So even though that offense was not super stable this year, I was like, y'all better watch out for South Carolina. Like it's going to be a close game, and it was somewhat close at the way it went. It was a bit of a slow game, a bit of a drag this year. But it was one that, to me, it's like you're always one play away with that duo because they can go and do it big. And Leggett, to me, at receiver was one that started slow, but then came on by the end of the week, and he adjusted. And to me, I give him credit for that of like, oh, now you've shown what you are. Day 2 and then into day 3 of good body control. It's something I rarely note about players, but I noted it about Travis Hunter. That really stood out. And to me, Xavier Leggett, like I feel very good about second round for him. I think the speed's solid. I know the height came in lower than what people wanted, and that was a bit of a conversation of, I think it was maybe a little over 2 inches lower than what he was listed at. So take that for what you will. To me, it doesn't change a whole lot. I think he's still somewhere in the 40s on my board. And this week, there were a couple of catches where he went over the top of somebody or made adjustments in the air and just showed off the body control, the ability to track the ball, and the ability to make his quarterbacks look a little better than they were on some of the throws, especially day 2 is what I'm talking about here in practice. And that was the thing to me that was sold me on that second round spot.
Yeah, I agree with you. I got a high second round grade on him as well. That's going into the Senior Bowl. He was one of the guys I had high on my list for my interview. That's going to be my next interview coming up, by the way. Check it out. Anyway, I'm literally working on the edit right now. But the thing about him, I think, like he said in his interview, he didn't feel like he had a good first day. I thought he had a solid first day. I didn't think it was horrible, but since then he played really well. Now, obviously, he got injured on day 3, I believe it was, so he didn't play in the game. But he's still around the team and rooting on his teammates. But the biggest thing that I took away from this weekend with Leggett was that he was a much more solid route runner than I thought. He's like Luke was saying about body control, being able to move that quick in and out of your breaks as a 6'3", I think he was 6'3", 210 pounds, I think he was. Wide receiver, that's impressive. You know, he's a big dude. And when you see him in the interview next to me, he makes me look like a small guy, and I'm not that small. So he made me look like a small dude. He's built. He got that body. He looked like a lot of people are comparing him to a DK. I think DK is much bigger, to be honest. But he has that body. He has that, you know, statue-like body, especially when you stand next to him. His freaking arm was huger than my head. So for him to move the way he was and then out his breaks, that really did impress me with, you know, his size and his speed that he did have. Now, he's not going to be the top end speed kind of guy. He might run a high 4.4, maybe low 4.5, but you know, if you're that big, you got to be able to box people out. You got to be able to route run really well, and that's exactly what he did. He impressed me with his route running. So I always did have a top 10 wide receiver grade on him in this class, which says a lot because it's a really deep class of wide receivers. So Leggett was definitely one of my top 10 receivers in this draft. So maybe top 15, like right on the edge of 10, maybe 10, 11, 12. There's a lot of freaking good receivers in this draft. So that says a lot. There's going to probably be like 6 of them in the first round. Just be aware of that. Like, there might be 6 wide receivers in the first round this year.
That's tough.
And then day 2 is really good too. Yeah, and here's the thing on Xavier as well, of people think he might run about a 4.3. That's something I didn't get to talk to him, but I hate to just keep saying 4.3, 4.3, 4.3. Like it sounds repetitive. It sounds maybe like an overhype, but there's a real chance we could have these Senior Bowl guys between Corley, Leggett, and Ladd McConkey running in the 4.3 range. Maybe they are a little slower than that. But yeah, I mean, also with Leggett, like listed at 6'3", 227, Senior Bowl verified him at 6 foot and 7'8", I think, and 219 pounds. So a little over 2 inches shorter. But that was quite the topic of discussion there for a minute, but still a really good prospect. And that's something that, you know, I look at from him and I say, yeah, we're looking at maybe a dozen guys that go on day 2 at the receiver position this year. And I know you mentioned the first round guys, maybe one of them ends up falling or one guy rises, but to me, I think it's about fair to say we've got a dozen really good looking guys that go between 32 and somewhere around there to 100.
I would say if he runs that 4.3 that Luke said he might run, he's going in the first round. There's no way he's going in the first round.
There's rumors floating around about the 4.3. That's not something I can verify, but I wanted to ask him that so bad.
I don't know if he's that fast, just based on eye test, but if he runs a 4.3, he's going in the first round. There's no doubt about that.
People love those combine times.
They do.
Thanks. I also wanted to ask, speaking about in the trenches, man, I know the Senior Bowl, it's kind of evolved, but I kind of look at it sometimes like a camp, like for high school, some smaller high school levels. You know what I'm saying? You see a big pop in the skill level, but in the trenches, it kind of dies down. Just how was it in the trenches, and who were some guys that kind of stood out to y'all?
Yeah,
the trenches is always the strong point of the Senior Bowl every year.
Really? Okay.
They don't miss on that position. It's not my cup of tea. I don't really follow the offensive line as much, but when I see a defensive lineman getting stood up the way I've been seeing all weekend, you can tell that's always the strongest position. So I'll leave it to Luke. He can maybe give you a little bit more in-depth analysis on the offensive line. It's not really my cup of tea. But you know, like I said, that position is usually the most stacked in your Senior Bowl. If you're looking for offensive linemen, look in the Senior Bowl. Look at the last couple of Senior Bowl offensive linemen that have been drafted. High picks. So
yeah, that was one to me, like Senior Bowl O-line. It's when I come in every year. I'm like, I love these guys, but also I know the numbers for me are going to come from the skill guys. And that's just what it's going to be, because there's something about Senior Bowl wide receivers. I don't know what it is, but there's something about it. Their evaluations are ridiculous. There's guys like Michael Wilson and Jaden Reed that even following college football last year, maybe I'd seen a highlight. Like I'd heard a little about him. They weren't totally unfamiliar, but they weren't guys that I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be a real NFL receiver that we're going to talk about, and people are going to pick him up in fantasy football and be really proud of it. You know, Puka Nacua, for example.
I was about to say, Puka's a huge example of that.
Yeah, and Christian Watson too. I mean, one of my biggest regrets. This is how I learned at the Senior Bowl. I've built my strategy off this. Media breakfast, first year at the Senior Bowl. Christian Watson's standing there and no one's talking to him, and he's looking around, and you know the media just interviewed, and he just they left, and he's just kind of standing there. And I was like, I could, and I looked at it, and I was like, no. Like I don't know if I quite believe in him. I was like, one good day of practice. I was trying to be the skeptic, you know, like one good day of practice doesn't make the player. Day 2, so I was, you know, it was before day 2 of practice. And I was like, no, I'll go get someone else. And I forget who I ended up getting. Didn't end up being near as good as Christian Watson, I'll tell you that. But it was the kind of thing where I learned, like, you don't know. Even when you do know, like especially a small school guy, if there's a small school player at the Senior Bowl, you better figure out who they are. You better go watch Dylan Lobb's highlights on YouTube, for example, from New Hampshire, the running back. Like Jalix Hunt, for example, didn't know who he was, but gosh, as soon as he accepted the invite, I was like, who is this guy? Where are the highlights? What can I find? Because that's the thing of their evaluations have been so strong. They've been so strong at receiver. And I come in and say, that's the position. I got to go get the receivers. I can't make this mistake again. And then I always end up talking to so many offensive linemen because they're such cool people. Guys like Andrew Ryan, for example, one of the best interviews I think I've ever had in terms of a personality. And you get to these linemen, they're so talented, but they're all in different parts of the country. I think I had an interview with a guy with a Wisconsin accent for the first time ever, and they're just from such different places, and the trenches are different up there. You know, that being a Michigan fan, you know, Jerome, and that's the thing to me of getting to hear about their experiences and learn. I always end up with the offensive linemen, and then I always end up really happy that I interviewed them because they end up being some bona fide pros and guys like Cole Strange that go in the first round because Bill Belichick believed that much in him, for example. So those are the things to me that you don't doubt the evaluations at O-line and receiver. Other positions are good, but those to me are the two best. So Andrew Ryan, I think, made himself a very solid draftable player, moved up into a very firm day 3 range. Jackson Powers Johnson, people can't get enough of talking about him right now. I'm not quite to that level of, you know, absolute first round stamp on him, but I'll say fringe, like somewhere in maybe the 30s to me feels right. Tough name here. I want to say Talisi Fuaga for Morgan State. Not one that I got to talk to, but a player that was an obvious standout. Thank goodness they matched him up against Leitu because we got to really see what they were about going against each other. They split one-on-ones on day 1, for example. And then, you know, on the flip side, the American team, Tyler Guyton's a guy people talk about. Not as high on him, even though I do think he is a day 2 prospect for sure, but I may be deeper in the second, more toward the 3rd round on him. Patrick Paul, really physical guy out of Houston. My dad, that was one of his better interviews. He talked about, I think he said, I'm Nigerian born, I'm going to be a politician. And that was how he finished the interview. So he was one that was pretty intriguing to hear talk, but also the fact that he's the type of tackle that you rush him and he'll just kind of stand you up. He'll just arms out, and he was playing a little higher, but it didn't matter. Like he was just kind of stand you up, just boom. And that's what it's going to be. Christian Haynes from UConn goes without saying. He was one of the top 100 players in college football last year and continued to show it. You look out there, you're saying, for me, like I have not watched the UConn football game. Maybe I shouldn't admit that, but it's just the truth, right? I mean, I'm not that deep.
There's so much you can watch, man.
And I'm out there looking like, what helmet is that? I was like, oh, UConn. They said the UConn guy was going to be good. And then Christian Haynes just continued to win reps on the inside. And I said, okay, yeah, top 100 player in college football last year. That's one of the latest rankings. And I think he showed that again. And that's someone that's a solid day 2 guy. So O-line, those are the ones that stuck out. Fuaga is going to go really high. Powers Johnson, 1st rounder. And a few guys like Ryan made some real money and I think earned themselves a contract.
Yeah. I just wish Paris Johnson was definitely one of them that was high on mine. So I wish he didn't get injured because he's one of the top centers. I'm sorry. That's his name, right? The Oregon center.
Oh, Paris Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah, I said it right. I'm sorry. Yeah. So he got injured during the Senior Bowl, and I wish he didn't because he was one of the guys top of my list. Obviously, I think we only got one lineman the entire time, which is obviously the Michigan guy, Henderson. So I think that was the only offensive line. We interviewed a lot of people, but I agree with Luke, man. If you're looking for an offensive lineman, definitely go to the Senior Bowl. They usually produce a lot. Cole Strange was one of them that we did interview a couple of years ago. Another good one was Matthew Boucheron, went to play for the Bears.
Yeah.
It's there as well. So and they don't have to always be a first runner, but these guys know how to scout offensive linemen, man. They always have good offensive linemen at the Senior Bowl. So if that's your cup of tea, I know Ray loves his offensive linemen. Senior Bowl is where you need to look for sure.
Most definitely, man. Last thing, real quick, man. On average, how many interviews did y'all do, man? Like huncho, have a huncho, 25.
See, Luke has this weird thing where he has almost double as much as I have somehow always, and we always go down there with I usually have 4 people that go down there. It'd be him and his dad, and they'd be having so much more interviews than me. I'm like, how? I don't understand. The structure of the interview, it makes it almost impossible to get interviews, and he always gets interviews. I don't understand, but okay.
Yeah, it's
pro, man.
So one of the things we did different this year, for example, I've been learning, I'm really trying to grow on Instagram, the @Winslow Media account, because that to me is one that, especially with recruits these days, they're not sitting on Twitter looking at their DMs. That's just not how it is. And you think about it too, I'm older than them and I don't do that. Twitter's work for me, and I'm still not on Twitter, consuming very much. And I'm like, well, they're definitely not, because they're on TikTok and Instagram. So to me, building the Instagram is really big from that perspective, and building relationships. And now we're seeing more coaches from TSP, Coach, or for example, Route King or Coach TJ, Coach Steph, these guys from TSP Performance that are huge on Instagram. They're kind of on Twitter. They respond, they do stuff, but Instagram's huge. So to me, that's one where I look at that. How do you grow on Instagram? Well, videos. Well, how do you grow with videos on Instagram is, from what I found, the research shows retention rates. Well, when we're on Instagram, we're not sitting down, even if it's a good looking interview, you're probably not going to be like, oh, let me watch a, 90, well, not 90 second. We'll say 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. You're not just going to sit there with your Instagram open watching that. There's different apps that you do that on. So to me, I was like 90 seconds or less. That's the key. And if it's not 90 seconds or less, I'll cut it below that, or I'll cut clips. So clips are going to be the big thing with my actual NFL draft coverage, of figuring out what's relevant that people said that maybe got more relevant or is still relevant, still good. But I'm a pretty analytical guy. I'm less analytical than I used to be, because then I got obsessed with getting 1 million Twitter views a month, and that's not very healthy, even though it was a fun thing to go for. But I'm analytical in my approach. Results are one thing that I have learned to compartmentalize, but the approach of, okay, retention rates are key right now. That's the thing. That's what's going to build the YouTube. So I've gotten for example, retention rate to me from Senior Bowl content's been somewhere around 13 to 15%, still to the very end of the video. Still a lot of room to go, but it's about double what it was on my stuff last year. And I'm seeing that reflected in the viewership and people following and sharing the stories. So that's one of the differences. Your interviews were a little longer, which is really good, Jerome, because that's honestly just a good thing to do. But for me, looking for retention rates and Instagram growth from any content that I wasn't selling off as freelance stuff or giving to the Clemson site, that was what I was looking for. So it was one, and then scanning the room, looking around, and then just, position yourself, set down the tripod, make sure everybody knows that I'm next, and then I get whoever I can next. And that's how I did it.
It's a madhouse out there, man. People it's doggy. It's exhausting, man. But you kind of get an idea. You do it. This is our second year in this kind of format for us. I know Luke's first year, it wasn't like this. It was a lot easier, relax, and being able to get interviews a lot more. And then right after. It's Luke's fault. You know, he went there and he wrote it off for us.
I brought everybody with me.
after last year, I think we kind of came up with a good game plan that's a little bit better than last year, because last year was the first year they had it where, you know, hey, you can get on the field, but you can't go to certain spots, and it's only going to be certain players to go on a certain field, and you got to know who those players are. If you're not going to get the interviews, and it can be a little rough. And sometimes, like, especially with Inside the Hatches, we don't like to do the group interviews, and I know Luke don't like to do that either.
Never.
And I hate it. We hate it. And there's a lot of guys that do that, and like there's some media people that, you know, you be talking, and then all of a sudden they get into your interviews, and it's a free for all, man. It can be interesting. Let's just say that.
Yeah. If it's not an exclusive, why'd you show up? I hate to say it. I hate to be that guy, but I mean, really, if you're gonna sacrifice what it takes to get to Mobile, like, you know, if I had a company paying for all of this, and I don't have to manage money or go through my company and try to get the books right and everything, like, and, you know, talk to people to make sure I get it all right, you know, getting help from my dad, for example, with a lot of finances of, hey, how are we going to work this? Or if I need money, here's you know, I don't have this, I can pay you back, those kinds of things. Like, just having to go through all of that, to me, like, I'm not doing that to go and share an interview with 5 people. Like, I'd rather not have it than to have to share it with a bunch of people, because if you can get it somewhere else, why are you getting it from me? I'm not a super big, you know, 200,000 Twitter follower kind of guy. So I don't have that reputation as a source yet, but the way to build it is to get into this in the exclusive interviews. So that, to me, is the key of, you know, setting down, being aggressive. And then also, when you're doing an exclusive, knowing in the back of your mind, like, there's people waiting. So I'll be respectful of them, like I would hope they would be of me. And don't be like a couple of people I saw at the media breakfast that poll players for close to 10 minutes. That was malpractice. Absolutely. I know you have a show. I know people watch you. I know it's a big deal, but it's those kinds of things of just trying to learn from the experience, and then eventually you start to form a strategy. I think we ended up with maybe over 50 or 60 exclusives from the couple of days that we were shooting stuff. So that was the way that we went about it.
That was going hard. We got like 20 plus.
Yeah.
That's good though, man. Good. Yeah, I hear what you were just saying with the because there was the same situation with Lad. You know, there was a lot of group interviews, and I'm just like, nah, I'm gonna ask him to get an exclusive. And he denied us twice. He was once on the field with his agent, and then when he was at the breakfast, he was on his way out. So even though there was like plenty of time in the breakfast, I'm not gonna get him for that. But anyway,
he's busy.
Yeah, I'm busy. I gotta go. Like, all right, whatever. Okay. But yeah, man, great event. Definitely would love for you two guys to go next year for sure. At least get the experience, if anything.
Yeah. I think y'all should do it because it'll teach you how to fight. I think a lot of people, when you first get into media, including myself, this is where I learned how to kind of duel it out with people, because there's certain confidence, and I think y'all have the confidence, but I think having the chance to display it and put it into action in a unique situation is something that would be really beneficial for y'all. So would strongly recommend, like, you're going to get good content, you're going to do good stuff, but to have to battle a few hundred credentialed people for a few players and having to deal with that and deal with some of the really high stress levels that come with it of, like, I've made my way down to Mobile, can't be doing this for nothing. You know, I've got to come out with a big haul here. And I think that's something that, you know, would be really good. So if y'all are able to do it, like, obviously we'd love to see you there. I think it'd be great.
Most definitely. If it weren't for the day job, I'd have been there. No cap.
I feel you. Yeah.
Yeah. I was telling you, twin, I was gonna be there, bro.
Brother. You're supposed to be there.
There we are.
I couldn't buck, bro. I definitely been on my ass.
I'll sell this to you.
You can sell it to me?
I might keep your name, but
That's my NIL, twin.
NIL.
No. The best thing with credentials to me is scrapbook. I put all these in a big scrapbook, and then you have them all laid out on these big sheets. And some people put them on the wall, but the little ties on the credential, even lanyards, they look messy to me. So I either cut the ties off, take them off a lanyard, put them in a scrapbook, then you've got something that you've got forever of all your stuff. You just kind of flip through. So strongly recommend that with your creds now.
I keep mine as well, man. I got every single senior roll lanyard I ever had. Every single one. So
Draft starts in Mobile.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. I think that's all for everything. You guys have anything else I want for Luke, man? Any last words?
Thank you for coming on, brother.
Thank you all.
Man, a lot of big gems, man, from you. I didn't think this podcast would be this long, but hey, man, it's good information. It was great talking to you, Luke, and we appreciate you getting on, man. And we're definitely gonna try to get you on another time for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, just let me know. I appreciate the opportunity, guys. I know I've talked you to death here, but thank you again and have a good one.
Nah, it's all great.
Sensei.
Do I do it back? I'm not up on the trend. I got you. See, to me, this is Arian Foster here. He scored the touchdown.
There you go.
That was the guy growing up. NFL Network, man. That was big.
Thanks.
All right, appreciate you, Luke, and we'll see you next time, man. Have a good night.
Y'all too. Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, that was Luke Winslow, man, and hope you got some good stuff out of him. I know we definitely did, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. Naj, you wanna follow up?
Yeah, man. One of the pioneers in the industry, man. Just does all the stuff right, man. Definitely has been instrumental in my career as well and helping me grow and point out little tidbits and stuff, man. But we appreciate him coming on. Y'all go to his content, Luke Winslow Media on Instagram and Twitter. Go give him a special shout out. And just go follow him. And he's always having pretty good content, man. But we are close. We are gonna wrap up the show here pretty soon. I'm thinking, Baker, you think we should just do hoops and react to Army Bowl next week? Like, what you thinking, man?
Yeah, let's react to Army Bowl next week, twin. I gotta get up one.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and shift the hoops, man. We'll break all that stuff down later. So let's go ahead and go to the 3-man weave. But let's let you lead us. What's the hot topics you got on tap for tonight?
Hot topics, like I mentioned earlier, man. Definitely got to talk about Juju Watkins, man, averaging 27 points per game. She had 51 points the other night. I believe she was recognized for Player of the Week twice. I think that's the only player not this season or ever. So she's, you know what I'm saying, freshman, definitely doing her thing, man. South Carolina defeated Ole Miss tonight. It was a 3-point game. I think it was like 85-83. So tough game. But just, you know what I'm saying, actually, let me ask you this, man. We talked last week about possibly raising the WNBA draftee range for college women basketball players this week, man. Just what's your thoughts of just the popularity of women's basketball's growth? What's your opinion on it?
Yeah, it's going at a rapid rate. I think in some instances you could say it's more popular than other sports around the country. And I think it's getting a lot of allure. I think the ability, I know a lot of people criticize it, but what Angel Reese did, her kind of bringing that trash talking aspect to it. And as it, obviously they talked and Caitlin Clark backed it up and was like, hey, well, you know, I like what she does for the sport. So when you have good stuff like that, the showmanship, a lot of times they're kind of like, oh, well, you're a lady, you got to act, or you're a woman, you have to act a certain way. So I do love the showmanship that they were able to display and kind of show. I think that was huge. So I think it's going in the right direction. As you mentioned, I think they should lower the age back a little bit for those that are draft eligible. You're seeing these people or these girls like a Juju Watkins averaging 27.3 points per game, also going with 7 rebounds, 3.4 assists, leading her team to a 16-4 record. That is having a profound impact on the game, and it can come and probably play WNBA ball right now. So I think that's just a testament of the sport, how well they're able to play, and how pro ready they are coming out, and even in their first year of college. You're seeing that all across the board, maybe on a smaller scale. Crystal Henderson is doing her thing at Georgia State. So I think for sure, I think it's heading in the right direction. I think it's going to be more and more just media exposure. And then a really cool thing too, Big, I don't know if you saw, but ESPN was doing more WNBA free agency coverage as well. As you see, a lot of girls were signing, especially this past week. Nneka Ogwumike was another one that was signing a pretty lucrative deal. I think the other one I seen was Skylar Diggins as well.
Skylar Diggins, yes.
Yeah, she was another one. So you're seeing ESPN cover it more. You're seeing it get more coverage. And that's really what it's about, man. We see that on the Georgia scale. So Tommy talk about Alabama having that lack of coverage. I think if you cover it, man, you'll be allowed to get more exposure. So I think just those big outlets, they got to do more of that and put these girls on display, man. I mean, obviously they're doing it now, but I definitely love where the sport's trending to and where it's going.
Facts. And since we talked about Caitlin Clark, we'd be remiss to bring up that she is 122. If this is current, 122 points away from breaking Kelsey Plum's all-time scoring record in WNBA in college women's basketball. So that's impressive. We've got to shout out Caitlin Clark for that. Moving on to the men's, man. I don't know how long OKC's been in the first place of the West, but it was just brought to my attention last night. I've been watching more college basketball this year, but kind of just what's your thoughts on Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, what's the brother? Just got
Josh Giddey.
Yeah, Josh Giddey. Just the crew, them running the West right now, man. I think it's so tight. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I think they were heading in the right direction. You seen like little the word's not splashes. You seen little hints of growth last year, right? You seen them being able to play at a high level. You was like, oh, okay, this team might be a piece or two away. You were seeing, that's the word, flashes. You were seeing flashes of their brilliance a little bit last season. I think this year is culminating together. And I think what's going to be valuable is it's be interesting to see how far can they go, right? The West is loaded, right? You got Clippers, you got the Suns, obviously got Minnesota, you got them, you got the Nuggets. Like, you're going to have really, really good elite teams. And I think it's going to be powerful to see. They're going to be probably a number one seed. How far can they really go? I think it's a big question. But I love the growth. Shea Gilgeous being I think he might end up being all NBA first team this year. And obviously he ended up getting the starting all-star starter over a Steph Curry. So that goes to show you how good he's been playing. I know if you're the Clippers, you did get Paul George, but you got to be thinking, dang, maybe we should have held on to him. Now, Paul George is playing at a great level. He's also an all-star. But you got to think about the youth too, right, of Shea Gilgeous. He's going to have plenty of years in the NBA to play. You know what I'm saying? Paul George might be in his prime on the back end of it compared to him. But obviously they love Paul George. He does great stuff. But I think it's great. And I think regardless of how it turns out, it's going to be a great learning curve. You saw what happened with the Sacramento Kings last year. They did go out in the first round, but a great learning perspective for them that they can continue to add with that young core and pieces they got on the team. I think it's going to be the same for OKC. I do think they will go further than what the Kings did last year, but I do think they're going to learn a lot from this playoff run, and I think they're going to be a dangerous team.
No doubt. How far do you think they'll go?
I think they got a chance to potentially go Western Conference Finals. I would not be surprised with how deep the West is if they get upset in maybe semifinals, but I think they can go Western Conference Finals. You know, I just think a lot of times it's lost. You got to have that, obviously, the longevity. You got to also have that experience, man. That is very, very valuable during that time because you might make a mistake here and there because you're not used to that environment. I think that's big.
No doubt. I think a team they're not really flying under the radar. Obviously, a team that wanted to chip last year can't fly under the radar, but not a lot of people are really buzzing around in the Nuggets, kind of like they were last year about this time about them. They're only a half a game out of first place. So what's your thoughts?
Last year either.
What'd you say, brother?
There wasn't a lot of buzz around them last year either. I don't think a lot of people even expected them to go as deep as they were. They was just there was always a consistent team being in the playoffs the last like 5 or 6 years. So I think that a lot of people kind of like ran them off. And then now they've got the championship. You know, I still don't think they get a lot of respect, but you know, it is what it is. I think the Nuggets are a really good team. You know, maybe the hype I actually kind of think they're better this year, to be honest, which is crazy. They're a lot more consistent this year. So I like them as a team. Obviously, that's my team, so I'm a little biased with it. But you know, I don't think they were talked about a lot last year either. So
actually, there was a good amount. I won't say a lot. It was a good amount of buzz around the Nuggets, seeing as there was a dangerous team last year, and I think you proved that. So it's kind of like when you think about they haven't won one yet, but when you think about the Bengals, right? It's a team you don't want to see come playoff time. I think that's the same thing with the Nuggets. Like, you don't want to see them playoff time. Same thing with Cincinnati. Like, Joe ain't won one yet, but everybody know like he's coming, right? Like that chip is gonna come eventually. And I think it's the same when you look at the Nuggets. They already won one, but it's a team you don't want to face in the postseason. Jokic already 2-time MVP, Finals MVP. You know what's gonna happen. Jamal Murray's made his name in the playoffs. Go back and go look at the bubble, what he was able to do, setting it on fire. They came up short in the West Conference Finals, but got that experience, was really, really elite. And then you see Michael Porter Jr. has faced some injuries, but is another good elite 3-guard or a number 3, you know, is able to do a lot of things, can defend at a high level, and you can't sleep on Aaron Gordon either. So I think, man, the West gonna be interesting because somebody gonna go home early, right? Minnesota, same thing, right? They got some talent, but it seems like Cat to me is like a Dak Prescott. Like when it's the playoffs, like he don't perform at the level he was supposed to perform to. No disrespect, I'm just saying. I feel like to me is living, spitting images of a Michael Jordan. You know what I'm saying? To me, in a mix of Kobe Bryant, because he got that mentality. You know what I'm saying? He gonna go at you, and then he's fun with it, he's funny with it, and he gonna come. And playoff time, he gonna drop them buckets on you. But can he get the requisite help around him in them instances? So I think the West gonna play out interesting, man.
Nah, most definitely. Carl's he's gotta show up. When he was with Kentucky, he had a lot of people pieces around him. I guess it was, when you got Devin Booker, you got who else is on that team? Willie Cauley-Stein was on that team. I'm trying to think of who other guards. Anyway, that was loaded. Obviously, they think the whole starting five, but then almost went in the first round.
Yeah.
But Carl's got to step it up, man. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, he's expanded the range, adding 3-point, but he's got to get back to what he does best. You know what I'm saying? Back to the basket, dominant inside the paint, interior looks, reverse pivots, and just being dominant to kind of free up, and just a little more because Ant's always gonna be free, man. But kind of moving on, what I thought was interesting. I'm looking at the Nuggets stats right now. DeAndre Jordan averaging 11.7 minutes per game. Not really averaging 4.5 rebounds, but nonetheless, man, that's just another big, beast, man. You already got a rotation with Nikola Jokic. We already know who that is. Last year's MVP. Was he last? No, he wasn't last year. He was Finals MVP. Excuse me. You got Aaron Gordon. That's a load, man. Then you got Michael Porter, who's not really a load, but nonetheless a long body is going to control the glass. So, and that's where I always believe that Denver is dangerous, man. You got a team that can control the glass, that can bang with you. Like I was talking. Go ahead, bro.
No. I was saying it's you.
I'm saying kind of what I talked to Naj a bit the other day. Like Bam was saying in an article written by Brian Windhorst that and when it comes down to the finals, it's all about being healthy. You know what I'm saying, and just playing with energy. And Bam was saying last year they were banged up, and we got that many big bodies that can rebound basketball. That's going to wear on you in the playoffs. So I honestly, I'm holding steady in the boat. They're half a game out of first place. I really think the Nuggets, excuse me. I think the Nuggets are going to be back in the finals this year. I just don't see anybody that can physically hang with them. Man, that's just my opinion.
And we did it the right way.
And he did it the right way. He built the team. You wasn't in the free agent sweepstakes. So, you know what I'm saying? They definitely came from the bottom. Came up to the top. Slow pace, slow cook. It's a marathon, ladies and gentlemen, not a sprint. But kind of breaking news. It just happened. Clemson has just upset North Carolina, man. That's big time. You know what I mean? Wish we could have talked to Luke about that when he was on, but he always dropping so many gems about the draft. I couldn't. I was locked in. I wasn't watching this. But then we'll kind of do. You got any more news on the hoops now? I'm gonna kind of go through a little G League, talk about the Scouts a little bit. We kind of wrap.
And I was just about to say something good about North Carolina. I've seen that North Carolina Duke game.
Yeah, go ahead, talk about the game, man. That was a good game.
It was dog. It was dog on the entire game. There was a couple of times when Duke came back in that game, but listen, I'm not a big TV guy. If it's not football, I don't watch TV that often. Especially when I'm at the Senior Bowl.
Right.
Sam was there. He turned on a game, and literally, I stopped everything and we was watching the game. It was a good game. Don't get me wrong. It was a lot of back and forth, but North Carolina controlled the game most of the time. There was up 17 points at one point. There was 20 points at one point. Duke was kind of coming back at certain points and things like that, but it was a fun game to watch. I think the game right after, I forgot who it was, but dude, that game was insane. Where it was, I forgot who it was. Please forgive me for not remembering the teams. I think it was like Louisville or something. It was one of the red teams. It was like a last minute 3-pointer, and he took the 3-pointer and made it. But then they looked at the replay, and then the ball was still in his hands at the 0. And that was the craziest game I've ever seen. And I got to remember what game that was. I'll tell you in a second. But that game was insane. That game was fun to watch.
That's a bet. Jared McCain, obviously, is a big name 9 for 18 from the field, man. 50% anytime you can do that. Shot at elite level. Average from the 3-point line. 2 for 6, 33%. 3 for 3 from the free throw line. 11 rebounds from a 6'1" guard, man. I think Jared 23 points in total. I think Jared's kind of really finding himself getting comfortable, man. So you never can rule a Duke out, but if you're gonna get that type of production from Jared McCain, definitely watch out, ladies and gentlemen. Baykai had 25. It was definitely probably Lotto pick for the Tar Heels. 10 for 13 from the field, elite. Ingram 8 for 12, 5 for 9 from the 3-point line. That says it all for herself. That's that's elite production from the 3-point line. But moving on to the Skyhawks G League report, man. A person who's kind of flying under the radar, man. Malik Ellison. He shoots the ball efficient, man. One of the highest efficient rated players on the Skyhawks right now. Possibly, it's still kind of tough to gauge with Coach. What's his name? Head coach for the Hawks. It's escaping my mind right now, but it's kind of they got a lot of the good things going on. They got Coach Schmidt down there at the G level. They're running more of a detailed, oriented, more statistical driven type of vibe this year, but it's still kind of murky waters to see what the bring up, send back schedules like outside just the draft picks of Lundy and Kobe Buffkin. But Malik Ellison, the names, leading team in efficiency rating, and talked to Coach Schmidt, man. He's like, he's definitely one of the guys who I'm telling, man, you need to shoot the ball a lot more. And I asked Malik, he kind of laughed it off. But that's a guy that's doing his thing down there in College Park that could possibly find his way up if the injury bug was to bite the Hawks in the tail. Chris Silver, another name, was talking to some scouts, man. I was like, man, why did not giving Chris a chance? I gave him the whole rundown. I mean, kind of like another Draymond Green. He was like, yeah, I kind of see the same thing. And coach has always been positive about him, about just somebody who's going to really come up and do the dirty work, man. You know what I'm saying? He's going to hustle, get the rebounds. He's going to block shots, and that's what you really want. Because, like I was talking to the scouts, man, they were like, when you bring somebody up to the G League, all the time bring somebody up who's going to score 30 possibly, because you got Trae Young, you got Jonathan Murray, you got Bogey, you got, who else? I can't remember the guy who just got hurt from Detroit. But anyway, you got those guys who can score. So I'm not going to bring up somebody else who's going to score. We need somebody to come in, make plays, winning plays. So I think those two guys are people or guys who can possibly make their way into the G League. So that is the G League report, powered by the Skyhawks by Bacon. Did you find that game, Jerome?
I'm looking. I think I want to say it was Iowa State versus Baylor, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm macking Sam now.
You good, brother? You good? We can find something. Kentucky's up right now, 93 over Vandy, 93-69 over Vandy. No surprise. Kentucky usually doesn't. Vandy's not really a basketball school, but after a loss, you know what I'm saying, they usually kick things in overdrive. Let's see, you got UConn's up over Butler right now, 54-46. Just check in and see what Stefan's doing. Stefan is 2 for 6 right now, 5 points. Stefan's been kind of, I ain't gonna say he's been kind of struggling as of late, but 2 for 6 is definitely struggling numbers. But he's definitely a freshman, which makes me wonder. And Isaiah for that matter, but definitely Stefan. I think Stefan's probably going to stay at a second year. He's coming off the bench. He's first round talent. I think longevity, definitely hurt. You don't think so? You think something come out this year?
Bro, have you been watching college basketball?
Yeah, I'm not a lot of UConn games, but I've been watching college basketball.
He's averaging 11, 4.6 rebounds, and 3.5 assists. Okay, he scored in double figures in the past 3 games. He scored in double figures past 3 games, and I believe he's won Freshman of the Week 5 times. It's not staying. You know what I'm saying? And he's already been brought up. If you go back and look at College Game Day this past week, not Jay Billis. I'm sorry. What is his name? Seth Greenberg, and it's what's the Jay Williams. They both said about the impact he's had on the team. It makes them a dangerous team come postseason time because they got another guy that can come in and score at a high level and can also assist and play make. So I don't see it. He's going to be a lottery pick, man. If he wants to come back, he can, but the kid going to be a lottery pick.
Okay, I'll give you that. So I'll evaluate them come March Madness. That's really what I do a lot of my evaluation for a lot of the umbrella players. But as right now, you know what I'm saying, you got Rob, you got Reed Shepard, you got Bradshaw, you know what I'm saying, you got Magic Johnson. I'm probably not gonna take Magic Johnson over Stephon Castle. Keep it a buck. But as a starter, I mean, it just all depends on what type of money he wants to make. Yes, he could probably be a lottery pick, but come back next year, average 15 or more, it's top 5. That's a lot more cheese in that back end. But you know, he definitely go lottery this year for sure, just upside alone.
He still, I give you this, thank you. He still might go top 5 this year.
Top 5? No way.
Go look at the boards, bro. And go, I'm telling you, go bookmark this conversation.
Top 5? Right now.
Watch this man. I'm telling you, go watch this man play a basketball game. And go watch him when March Madness on fucking UConn, excuse my language, and watch what he's doing for the team, for the Huskies. They're 20-2. Okay? 20-2.
That's a good team, too, now. They ain't no one person.
No, it is. But watch how he compliments the team. And you tell me he's not pro-ready top 5. Now, he'll have the decision if he wants to come back, sure. But he can play right now. Just watch. Watch the region tourney. Watch the tournament. Watch how the team looks at him playing.
High key on region tourney. High key.
Watch the conference tournament. I mean, region.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry.
Watch the conference tournament and watch what he do.
High school hoops. We got to say region, but yeah, conference for sure.
No doubt. And my last topics to conclude for the night. Norcross ended Peachtree Ridge 7-game win streak, a clutch win, 63-60, snapping their streak. They now have an inside track at a 2 or a 3 seed. Not their best season, but going through, just having a very young team. Chobi Ojoku being a senior, transfer in, Casey Williams, Deron Salisbury being the young guy for them, and putting the pieces together. So had a tough season, but played some stellar competition. Coach Mack always does a good job with that group, handed them their first loss. And then I wanted to preview real quick Cedar Grove versus Sandy Creek in a pivotal matchup this Saturday. Manny Green is going to be a player to watch, 6'7", 205 plus pounds. He's been a lead all season on both ends of the floor. Cedar Grove had another stellar season. They made it all the way to the state championship. Sandy Creek is fresh off that state championship. Players you want to watch is Amari Brown and Micah Smith. That's going to be a stellar matchup between those two this weekend. So stay tuned for that. And the last thing before we conclude, Bacon, I want to get your thoughts on when is the tip-off invitational, and what's your thoughts overall on the event?
Well, I need to look that up, but the one that I'm mainly high key on is the Young Bulls, man, the kids one. Let me pull it up real quick. DTP.
I found out what game it was.
Go ahead, brother.
So it was the Iowa versus Baylor game. Real quick, I want to show you this last play. It was insane. I'm just gonna put this on the screen real quick, and I'm gonna play it for you guys to look at it. So this is the final play of this game. As you see, it's 68 to 70. I'm gonna let you watch this real quick. How quick this game was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 3-pointer. Iowa thought they won.
Go back.
They said, look at it again. It did not get out of his hands in time. So Baylor did wind up winning that game. So I just wanted to show you guys that real quick. It was a insane ending to that game. I was mad because I'm like, why would you pass the ball? They had 1 second left in the game, by the way. So it had to be a quick grab and shoot. And then the player, grabbed the ball, passed it, and then the other guy hit the 3 and he hit it, but it didn't hit it left his hand way too late because they get one extra movement in there. So I was like, why would you extra pass it? Just get it, shoot. So great game. I thought it was fun. It was cool. And then to that game, it was Iowa State versus Baylor.
That's tough. The dates. This is what I'm most interested in. This the juniors, June 28th through the 30th. Then the big boys will play April the 5th through the 7th. Spring is almost here, and it'll probably be at the Tip-Off Classic. But those young bulls to watch, you got Braylon at Pace Academy. You know what I'm saying? That the embarrassment of riches there. Give me a second. Love some more of these young boys. Braylon Craft. He's the number one. Number one, especially in Georgia. Number one player, a guard that can really just do it all, man. He's handling the ball like he's a junior and not a senior in high school. Just cooking all the young boys. Probably like at 6'1" right now. He can shoot it from deep. He can pass it. Highly skilled at a young level. It is amazing to me. Another young bull is. What is his name? They got a kid at South Cobb. What is his name? Did not see his name. But you know what I'm saying? We could take the film.
No doubt.
Definitely.
Euro step, man. To see these kids be so polished at a young age is scary, man. Just like when we were in high school, you know what I'm saying? You had kids at our age that was doing some exceptional things, but these kids are already shooting from the logo, got polished, refined post moves, little drop step right there. It's just astounding to me, man. Like where's the game going? The game is in good hands, man. So I think it's gonna be a good event come April, but the treat to me is that June we get to see the tip-off classic juniors, man. It's gonna be a handful of known kids, but there gonna be some kids who we're not expecting is gonna come through and show the tail. So if you don't make it to the April one, relax. Just make sure you make it into the June one. I don't think it's gonna be a lot of media at that one. I'll be shocked just because kids, most people, it's always people gonna be late to the party, kind of like the WBB thing. So the June one, market calendars, Jerome market calendar. You know, I know you got a lot going on, but if you can't be there, you'll be glad you came, my friend.
100%.
Swanee Hoop Complex.
Yeah, send me the date. I got you.
I got you, my friend. As soon as we get off, it'll be in the group. Ding ding ding.
Let's do it.
But that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the 3-man weave, man. We appreciate y'all always. For those that are here, those who have stayed, because we know it's been a long show, man. But we appreciate y'all if you're still here, tuning in and listening to the takes, man. It was really a great show today. But nonetheless, I'll send it to Jerome to kind of close us down.
Yeah, man. Great show today. We appreciate all our guests. We had Hevin, Brown Shuler, Clemson guy earlier in the episode. We had Luke Winstel. We was able to talk to him a little bit, talk about the Senior Bowl afterwards. Then obviously we had our 3-man week. So great show today, guys. It ran a little bit longer than we expected to, but I don't think we expected to have 2 guests on today. That was kind of our little error right there, but I'm glad that we had the guys that we had, man. It was great guys. So appreciate this. Make sure you stay tuned in because we're gonna always have some kind of guests on us, or even if we don't have guests, we're gonna have some great nuggets and great things that we're gonna tell you about the industry and football and basketball and everything sports wise. So definitely make sure you stay locked in to the First and Foremost podcast. I know you see those right over here. You got the Najee, you got Bacon, you got Jerome right there. Make sure you follow all those social medias. We got some great stuff coming out, great content that we put our hearts and souls into. So all we have to do is just make sure you come check us out, like and subscribe, all that. That just really does help us out at the end of the day. And, you know, love to be able to share this product with you guys, you know, and you know, I know all 3 of us are very proud of what we have here, and you know, all we want to do is just make it better and better and better each time. So that's what we strive for you guys, and we're gonna try to get the best out for you guys to view. So we appreciate you guys, man. Now, Baker, got any final words, real quick?
I got Wale Pitt. I'll be talking to him this Saturday on the network. Tell you story. He's the official videographer for HBCU Game Day. Yeah. So that'd be something interesting to hear his perspective. You know what I'm saying? Kind of be how he built himself up in the industry to go around from college to college and kind of do documentaries, and they're real good documentaries. So that'll be something dope to hear on your Saturday afternoon or evening.
Definitely. Well, we're gonna get out of here because Najee looks like he's about to fall asleep on us at any second. So I appreciate you guys for getting on with us, man. This is the First and Foremost podcast. And Bacon, I'm gonna let Bacon close us out.
All right, man. This is First and Foremost, where we don't just give you the spiel, we keep it real. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Get you some good sleep and have a blessed night. Peace.
Hey, yeah.
Super Bowl. And I got the Chiefs.